No one has paid the price like you have paid the price.
I'm a double.
Hello. Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys for the first time in a couple of days, to say the least. Back in the studio together, I love it. Big show ahead, of course. As I previewed in a live video earlier today, Iran has rejected the ceasefire proposal, which because it wasn't really a ceasefire proposal, it was nonsense. So we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to a new standard. If Israel or US is killing civilians, it's okay. It's okay, because those targets had dual use. New excuse for terrorism, but only if Israel does it. Okay,
right.
So a lot to get to here, including Democratic plans for 2028 and 26. How are they planning to get back the House and the White House? Well, we'll see if they can or not. So a lot to get to, Casper.
Yes, there certainly is, and I want to begin with, what Trump had to say during his press conference today. Let's get into it.
Because we are obliterating that country. And I hate to do it, but we're obliterating it. They just don't want to say uncle. They don't want to cry, as the expression goes, uncle, but they will. And if they don't, they'll have no bridges, they'll have no power plants, they'll have no anything. If I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil. Because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it.
This morning, President Donald Trump decided to double down on the profane Easter morning threat that he put out against Iran, threatening Iran's civilian infrastructure if the Iranians refuse to open the Strait of Hormuz. Now, before I give you the details on that and more, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so it is an act of complete desperation by Donald Trump to do all of this. Oh my God, please reopen the strait. And literally nothing he says is true. So we're gonna give you all of his nonsense comments and the reality, and then talk about, what are the consequences of this?
So let's begin with what President Donald Trump decided to put out on Easter morning. He issued this threat to Iran, saying that Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing strait, and he actually used the word, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, targeting civilian infrastructure flies in the face of international law. It's basically committing war crimes. But we are now, unfortunately, in a new era where war crimes aren't even a thing. And so if this is the kind of conduct that the United States and Israel thinks is okay when they're carrying it out, then Israel in particular needs to stop whining when war crimes are committed against them. Just saying that. Okay, now moving on, let's get to some of Trump's prior statements. So prior to Trump's threats, US-Israeli strikes severely damaged Iran's B1 bridge in Karaj and a petrochemical facility in Mashahar was also targeted. Now, just today, we got more notification about yet another petrochemical plant or facility that was targeted by the Israelis. We'll get to that in just a minute. But in late March, the Iranian Red Crescent Society reported that more than 82,000 civilian structures had been damaged by US-Israeli bombardments, including 62,000 homes, 498 schools, and 281 medical centers, hospitals, and pharmacies. Additionally, 17 Red Crescent bases and 94 ambulances and rescue vehicles have also been damaged. So I don't want anyone to make the mistake of thinking that the targeting of civilian infrastructure in Iran hadn't happened until now. No, it's been happening throughout the entirety of this incredibly short-sighted and stupid war. CNN also confirmed the targeting of vital civilian infrastructure through its own forensic analysis using videos and satellite imagery. One example cited in CNN's reporting was the use of a 2,000-pound bomb to target Iran's IRIB TV station, which is only 100 feet away from the Gandhi hospital. Quote, these bombs used by both the US and Israel are capable of killing or wounding people more than 1,000 feet away, according to CNN's reporting. So Iran's civilian infrastructure, again, was already being targeted. What Trump and the Israelis are doing now is just a continuation of more of the war crimes that have already been committed. Now, Israel's foreign Defense Minister Israel Katz announced today that the IDF forcefully struck Iran's largest petrochemical plant. This key facility accounts for about 50% of Iran's petrochemical output. This follows an attack on Iran's second largest facility last week. That's the facility I was referring to earlier. As a result, both facilities, which together account for 85% of Iran's petrochemical production, are now out of operation. This represents a multi-billion-dollar economic blow, he says, to the Iranian regime, but make no mistake about it, it creates a massive blow to the global oil markets, which we all suffer from. So thank you to Israel, the actual terrorist state in this entire situation. Cenk, back to you.
Yeah, so this is what I'm more worried about, the Israelification of our policies, because in America, we don't hit schools and hospitals, or we didn't used to.
At least not overtly.
Yeah, and now we're doing what Israel does, destroying, I mean, look at that, 498 schools, 281 medical centers, what are we doing? I don't know what percentage of that is us and what percentage is Israel. Israel thinks that it's allowed to do terrorism, and it's enabled by our mainstream media here in this country that has this now two different standards. So if a Muslim country does it, they're goddamn terrorists who can't believe they're targeting civilians, murder them all, right? If Israel does it, they're like, oh no, that's now, they've invented a new word, we'll talk more about it later, dual use, okay? So a bridge or a medical building or a school could have dual use. So we're allowed to be terrorists? No, we're not. This is all invented and made up. And if you notice what Anna just told you, we hit a TV station and like it was normal.
We dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on a TV station. Yeah.
And Trey Ying's reporting we're using bunker busters in Iran, okay? So those are gigantic bombs. So wait, is it now okay for Iran to hit CNN or New York Times or ABC? My guess is if they did, we would all call them terrorists. In fact, my guess is the people at CNN would scream at the top of their lungs about terrorism. Yet we hit their TV stations, kill civilians, nary a mention, right? Like you could barely hear anything about the invasion of Lebanon from Israel on television, on cable news, or terrorism. You hear almost nothing about it on cable news. I mean, you gotta remember, TV is not news, it's propaganda. It's poison for your brain. Turn it off. Okay, so now the Trump statement there. I mean, you wanna talk about projection, you crazy bastards. Who's the crazy bastard? I mean, the guy's screaming, open the effing straits! And he sounds like a spoiled child. Like who screams into the abyss, open the effing straits? Like if you already have power and leverage, you don't need to act like that. And do you think acting like that is gonna get you what you want? But he's been trained his whole life to be spoiled.
100%.
But it's not gonna work when you're in a war with a different country. And then he says, you'll be living in hell. Brother, we're living in hell. The gas in LA is up to $6.50. $6.50, headed to $8. Okay, we'll cover that later in the show. Make sure you check out that video. So, and now he says that Tuesday is power plant day and bridge day. I remember when we had a more innocent time in this country when Tuesday was Taco Tuesday, okay?
Yeah, look, I need everyone to understand. Every time Israel, every time Israel and the United States target civilian infrastructure in Iran, Iran retaliates in kind. So whether it's water desalinization plants, whether it's these petrochemical facilities, Iran is going to respond and retaliate in kind. Now, one of the ways that they've been retaliating is by striking some of the infrastructure in these Gulf countries. Think about Saudi Arabia and how reliant Saudi Arabia is on water desalination, considering the fact that it's Saudi Arabia. They don't have access to clean drinking water, or at least not as much as other parts of the world. And so if Iran decides to strike the desalination plants in Saudi Arabia is done. Saudi Arabia is done. These, Gulf countries are done. If Iran decides that, you know what, we're going to intensify our attacks against them and we're going to go after their critical infrastructure. So what Trump and the Israelis are doing here is incredibly dangerous for many countries, not just Iran, but nonetheless, I mean, they don't learn their lesson. And every time Iran retaliates, they whine and they cry about, oh, Iran is attacking our civilian infrastructure. Yeah, they're retaliating. How about you guys stop attacking their civilian infrastructure? But they're not going to. This is actually their whole blueprint. This is their plan, which we'll get to in a little bit on the show.
Yeah, so along those lines, first of all, if you notice, Iran counterstrikes.
Yes.
They don't strike first. That is incredibly important. By the way, are the neocons that are the cable news anchors in this country noting that?
No, of course not.
They're making it seem like Iran is the devil, right? But look, I don't want any of our guys getting hurt at all. That's why we shouldn't be in this war. But our job is to be honest with you guys and bring you the real news. Iran only retaliates in the same exact way that we have bombed them. So if they were the aggressors, that wouldn't be the case. They'd be hitting the Israeli and Gulf infrastructure before we hit them. But so far, they have not done that at all. So we are clearly the aggressors. We are the ones that started this war. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it, and we are the ones escalating throughout. All right, now obviously.
Can I add one more thing to that, guys? Look, what was the first thing Israel did mere days after the US attacked Iran? They invaded Lebanon. At the same time, Israel has made it abundantly clear that they will not put IDF boots on the ground in Iran. Now, why is that? Because they have the United States dutifully fighting its war for them against Iran, freeing the Israelis up to engage in land annexation in Lebanon. And they have announced, yeah, we're gonna annex southern Lebanon. There's nothing you can do about it. So what we are doing is using our soldiers, using our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, or actually I should be more specific. We are going into more debt as a nation to fight Israel's war for them in Iran so they can expand their empire. That is what's happening right now.
Yeah, we're enabling and financing the terrorism of Israel, and our troops are a distraction and a diversion while they take southern Lebanon. But it gets worse. So if we hit Iran's energy facilities, the power plants, et cetera, and we've already started with hitting the petrochemical plants, and Iran retaliates by hitting the ones in the Gulf. Why are they hitting the Gulf and not Israel as much? Because Israel has Iron Dome and the Gulf doesn't. So the Gulf leaders are a bunch of idiots who made a deal with Israel thinking, oh, we'll be safe if we do. No, exact opposite. Since it's very hard to hit Israel, they're like, well, the leverage that Iran has is oil prices, global oil prices. So you're gonna hit our oil, we'll hit your oil. And by the way, guys, now oil is going to, if Trump follows through on that threat tomorrow, oil will be catastrophically high prices. So get ready. And every time you go to the pump and you pay that extra money, remember, Israel robbed you of that money. Now you're thinking, wait, are you sure that it's all Israel, et cetera? Now let me tell you the last part of it, which it will make your blood boil. Part of the reason Israel wants to hit all the energy plants in Iran is so that Iran counterstrikes. But why would that help Israel? Because Israel has a giant gas field called Leviathan that they have just opened. And Netanyahu's all over the air saying, hey, don't worry, guys, you can now buy energy from us.
Cool, Iran should strike it.
Yeah, well, if they can.
I'm gonna be clear. I mean, look, I know that there's like significant censorship in Israel, but there are some military experts who are in the know about what's going on the ground in Israel, and more of Iran's missiles are getting through.
Yeah, so look, they're playing a super dangerous game, both for Israel and obviously in region and the whole world, because as we're gonna tell you later in the show, the oil prices, if you think they're bad in America, oh my God, they're horrific in other places. Israel is going to melt down the entire global economy.
They already have, Cenk.
Right.
They already have. They're a cancer in this country, in this world, on this globe. Everything that they do is at the detriment of every other country on this planet. It's all about them, and they will do anything it takes to destroy the economic well-being and the sovereignty of any country if they see them as a threat, if they see them as real competition when it comes to their economic goals. That's what Israel is.
And now, guys, the super dangerous part is that before, Israel did not have an internal energy source. So now that they have Leviathan, they feel that they don't have to import energy anymore, so they feel safe. The rest of the world can burn, but they have enough. Plus, they export it and make extra money. So the higher that energy prices are, Israel views it as a huge win for them. That is why what Anna's saying in this particular context is literal. The more the rest of the world is in pain, the bigger advantage Israel thinks they have for themselves. That way we get to take southern Lebanon, we get to destroy Iran's military so that there are no regional competitors of ours. We destroy everyone's energy facilities so that we're the only ones left with Leviathan. And
they can, they can charge whatever they want. I mean, considering the fact that there's going to be less oil and gas supply thanks to the war that they've been pushing for and succeeded in getting the United States to carry out.
Now, have you seen any of this in mainstream media?
Of course not.
Have you seen a discussion of Leviathan and how Netanyahu's bragging about they're going to be the only alternative left? You haven't seen any of it, right? Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird, as you'll see later in the program, more and more of this, that when when any of Israel's neighbors defend themselves, they're called terrorists and they can't believe they hit any civilians at all. When Israel hits civilians, they go, oh, no, all of a sudden that's dual use and totally fine, and that's not terrorism. And yet they pretend to be objective? No, our mainstream media is the least objective thing in the world. In fact, they invented the idea, and this was a brilliant piece of propaganda, that they're the ones who are objective to cover up their bias.
Right.
It's amazing, brilliant, well done until now. You're caught, and this is all a mask off moment for everyone in national media who's still covering this as if Israel is the victim, when in reality, Israel is clearly the aggressor and destroying the Middle East and now doing massive damage to the world.
Well, let's pivot over to something else that broke over the weekend that you should know about. So, over the weekend, President Donald Trump told Fox News reporter Trey Yingst that the United States actually armed protesters in Iran in January in an effort to spur regime change. Take a look.
President Trump told me the United States sent guns to the Iranian protesters. He tells me we sent them a lot of guns. We sent them to the Kurds, and the president says he thinks the Kurds kept them. He went on to say we sent guns to the protesters, a lot of them.
The Kurds have since responded by saying that they did not take any weapons from anyone, but nonetheless, I don't deny for a second that the United States sent weapons to protesters on the ground. We also know that the United States, along with Israel, agitated for the protests to take place. The US has implemented crushing economic sanctions against the Iranians. The demonstrations began as protests against the economic conditions on the ground in Iran, something that's been manufactured by US sanctions. And then we learned that Israel put Mossad on the ground in Iran to further agitate the situation. If you don't believe me, take a look at this headline from the Jerusalem Post where they write that Mossad spurs Iran protests, says agents with demonstrators in Farsi, message. As protests grow across Iran, the Mossad posted an unusual Farsi message urging demonstrators to act. Now their act ended up getting people killed, and the fact that there were weapons on the ground supplied by the United States further demonstrates how our actions lead to more people getting killed on the ground. And this was never, ever, ever about liberating the Iranian people, as the targeting of civilian infrastructure by the United States and Israel in Iran clearly shows.
Yeah, so it's possible that they told Trump that they're sending the weapons to the Kurds and then didn't send it to the Kurds, sent it to someone else, to Mossad or whoever, right? So now there's absolutely no question Mossad has said it in their tweets about how they're in the field with the protesters. And the Israeli press has confirmed, Mossad has said it, our guys, Mike Pompeo has said it, so there's no question. So look guys, look at the propaganda again, sorry, but it's true from traditional media. Now they say, oh my God, 30,000 killed. Now Trump, by the way, moved the number up to 45,000 protesters killed.
He even said it could be 60,000.
Yeah, so these are 100% made up numbers.
They are.
So we tracked where the number originally started from. And it started from a source at Time magazine.
Yep.
Who was the source? An associate of Reza Pahlavi.
Yep.
The puppet that Israel wants to put in place in Iran as their Shah, as their dictator.
So two times in a row, I've gone on Piers Morgan's show, and both times he just regurgitates the 35,000 person number, right? Casualty number. And I reject it because there's no evidence to back that up.
None.
At all, at all. You guys think I didn't do my research and looked into it? Of course I looked into it. Of course I want to know the number of people who were killed. So let's actually look at credible numbers, shall we? Numbers where this particular organization attached human names to the casualties, okay? So that's how you confirm that these are protesters who were in fact killed as a result of, the protests becoming violent and the IRGC responding to it. So the most substantial documentation is from the US-based Iranian human rights organization known as HRANA, which reported in February that it had recorded the names of 6,425 protesters who were killed. By the way, that number is devastating enough. Why do you have to needlessly inflate it and make things up? Why do you have to pretend like it's 35,000? Why did Trump have to pretend it was 60,000 during his speech today? It's ridiculous, and it leads to distrust. Distrust toward the media, distrust toward government officials. Further, in addition, 214 individuals affiliated with the government and 50, meaning the Iranian government, and 57 civilian non-protesters have been reported killed, according to the same organization.
Yeah, so here's how the plan works. And again, they described it themselves. Mossad agents go into the crowds, they fired Iranian security.
Yep.
Iranian security fires back, voila, massacre, okay? So now the Iranian regime was bad enough. You didn't need to make it seem worse, right? Like we already know, do they oppress their own people? Yes, they do. But the question isn't that. The question is, what are you gonna do about it? Like, can we actually help the Iranian people? And was this an effort to help the Iranian people, or was it using the Iranian people as human shields while they were actually had a different purpose?
I would go with the latter, Cenk.
Obviously, it's the latter. And so while they pretended to care about the Iranians, they purposely fired from the crowd or protesters, knowing that it would get the protesters killed. And that was their plan, get the protesters killed while pretending to care about them. And then that'll spur a war, which they had two plans. One is regime change, which would involve troops on the ground.
US troops, of course.
Of course, never Israeli troops. Their lives are way too precious. And so that would involve, maybe like Iraq, hundreds of thousands of civilians killed. Again, Israel doesn't mind at all, while pretending this is for the Iranian people. And now they're bombing petrochemical plants, they're bombing bridges, schools, and hospitals, murdering Iranian civilians at a massive rate, while they pretended this was on behalf of the Iranian people. Now, look, that's Israeli propaganda, and I get it. What bothers me is what Anna's pointing out here, which is that almost everyone in American media repeats that propaganda as if it's true.
Yeah.
Show me a source. And then they pretend to be objective. Show me a source that isn't linked to Israel or the Shah about these numbers that you're inventing out of whole cloth. These are the same exact people, by the way, the same cable news anchors who are like, oh, the number of people killed in Gaza, you can't trust that. It's from dirty terrorist Hamas. Wait a minute, they literally counted individuals. They didn't count the people in the rubble. The IDF later said, yes, their numbers are accurate. Okay, so those are incredibly accurate numbers, but Jake Tapper and all the rest of them are like, a bunch of dirty Arabs. You can't trust their lying numbers, right? Then when it comes to Iran and Israeli propaganda, they're like 30,000, 45,000, can I say 60,000, 90,000? Because they're making up numbers.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing news, they're doing propaganda.
We got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Well, the war crimes that Israel not only carried out, but took ownership of, and proudly so. Come right back.
I'm a double.
All right, back here. Let's go to Super Track. Chrono Hop says, sending love from Vancouver, Washington. Please come visit soon. We need a TYT US live tour. Let's rally the support. Thank you. I will be going to the Vancouver Web Summit. So if you can get up to the Canadian side of Vancouver, would love to see you there. That's in May, so it's coming up. The Umakaram writes in, why doesn't Europe wake up and do something? Explain please, since Europe gets affected by oil prices the most. Honestly, the reason is a lot of their media and politicians are also Zionists. And so they'll destroy their own people in an effort to help Israel. So we need an actual political rebellion in all of these places to root out Israel from our governments. Because otherwise, why the hell would you? Yeah, why don't we destroy our own economies? That's lunacy. It's not lunacy. Our leaders are disgustingly corrupt and work for a different government. Lord of the Hamstrings Glory says Trump is losing it, using praise be to Allah to bully Iran while hosting a blasphemous party on Easter. The hypocrisy is wild. The world is officially done labeling Muslims as the problem. Political speech is broken. It's time to call out the US and Israeli Nazis for what they really are. No more hiding behind old lies. We are done with the labels they force on Muslims for years. That is true. Our media in America has been disgustingly racist and bigoted against Muslims my whole life. They've told you to hate them. They're giant liars. But now what's beautiful is Christians in America are going, nope, we're on to you. We're not gonna hate Muslims anymore. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Look at all these beautiful people. Dawn Whitehead, thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube. Chrono Hop, thank you for gifting 5. The Uma Karam, thank you for gifting 20. And Cornelius Poindexter, thank you for gifting 50. Love you guys, and we can't do the show without you guys. You're our power base. Other people have, tons and tons of money from Israeli power bases. We do not have that. We only have you guys, and we appreciate you deeply.
We just have their tears.
Yeah, well, it does power us. All right, one quick note from a sponsor. Look, Cook Unity, I use it. They have amazing meals, an incredible variety from award-winning chefs, and our members have started using it and love it. So make sure you're checking it out. And go to cookunity.com/TYT or enter the code TYT before checkout to get 50% off your first order. That's a huge discount. That's 50% off your first order by using code TYT or going to cookunity.com/TYT. Check it out. I guarantee you won't regret it. All right, Anna.
Let's get right to our next story.
We have the legitimacy to target those civilian targets, and I would advise the Iranian to believe President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, because they have showed in the last month that they are capable of striking any target in Iran.
Well, the man you just heard from, who sounds like he has a hot potato in his mouth as he's speaking, is Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. And he was essentially previewing the IDF's new war crime-laden plot to try to attempt to topple the regime in Iran. Now, before you hear more from Danny Danon and the plan itself, Cenk, your 2 cents.
I thought he sounded German. Like it literally sounded like a German accent to me.
He sounds like a douchebag, that's what he sounds like.
Yeah, so because they're now doing the same things that the Germans did. I mean, it's a horrific irony of how fascism has moved from Germany to Israel, who were the original victims, obviously, of the Germans. Okay, so what you're about to see, guys, is a new piece of propaganda. It's called dual use. That's the phrase that they're using. You remember when Dick Cheney said, "Oh, we're not doing torture. We're doing enhanced interrogations." So now, oh no, we're not hitting civilian targets, we're hitting dual use targets. So Anna, explain to us how Israel, and unfortunately us, we've been dragged into this, are going to do terrorism going forward.
That's exactly right. Now, this was reported by Miriam Adelson's paper in Israel, known as Israel Hayom. And they report that on the working assumption that the regime will not accept the American demands and that its overthrow is still out of reach, the direction the US appears to be taking in order to bring about Iran's collapse is the economic one. Fascinating. As part of the escalating attacks, the targets expected to come under fire include additional bridges. We're talking about civilian infrastructure here, folks, and major railway lines, especially those leading to the capital, Tehran. The expanded target bank also includes various sectors of the oil industry, both in extraction and in related products, including petrochemical industries. In fact, wow, would you look at that? The war minister in Israel, Israel Katz, announced today that the IDF targeted a petrochemical facility in Iran, saying that the IDF forcefully struck Iran's largest petrochemical plant. This key facility accounts for about 50% of Iran's petrochemical output. This follows an attack on Iran's second largest facility last week. As a result, both facilities, which together account for 85% of Iran's petrochemical production, are now out of operation. Oh, goody. Now, Israel Hayom also claims, and that leads to the next phase of the economic war, a complete halt to Iran's oil exports, its oxygen pipeline, which has already been hit hard since the start of the war. This economic move, which over the past year has deepened the crisis as sanctions enforcement intensified, is ultimately expected to bring about economic collapse. The whole point is, well, if you succeed in economic collapse in Iran, you're more likely to topple the regime in Iran. That is the plan. So again, I want to be very clear, Israel and the United States have a plot to intentionally target civilian infrastructure, economic infrastructure in Iran in an effort to topple the regime so Israel can expand its borders. In late March, the Iranian Red Crescent Society reported that more than 82,000 civilian structures have been damaged by US-Israeli bombardments, including 62,000 homes, 498 schools, and 281 medical centers, hospitals, and pharmacies. Additionally, 17 Red Crescent bases and 94 ambulances and rescue vehicles have also been damaged. And those are just the numbers from late March. So in the first 6 days of April, as we know, Israel and the United States further targeted Iranian civilian infrastructure.
Yeah, so this is a win-win for Israel. So how so? They have two goals in the war in terms of the Iranian regime. Plan A was regime change, go in, put in Reza Pahlavi. That seems very difficult now, and US has partly rejected Reza Pahlavi as the leader of Iran because he has no support inside the country. The support you see in American media is completely manufactured, 100% propaganda. It doesn't represent any Iranians at all. It's actually the Israelis pretending the Iranians want a dictator who's a puppet to Israel. So now that was their plan A. And the more we dig into the war, the more we destroy their infrastructure, they destroy our infrastructure, the more we have to put in ground troops, so open up the Strait of Hormuz. And the more likely you're gonna get regime change. So Israel loves that. But if that fails, they have a plan B. And again, we get this from the Israeli papers. The American press is totally owned by the government of Israel. I don't mean that literally, I mean it as in their actions.
Owned by Zionists. It's owned by Zionists. They're Americans who care about Israel more. Yeah, I'm accusing them of not dual loyalty, but prioritizing a foreign country over our own. That is what I'm accusing them of.
So the evidence is clear, right? They won't report things even the Israeli press reports.
Yeah.
So plan B now, according to the Israeli press, is chaos. Now, why? Why do they want that? It could lead to civil war. It debilitates the Iranian regime. They have to focus internally. So Israel thinks that means they can't fund proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. They can't be a regional superpower anymore, and that allows Israel to dominate the region. And as Netanyahu recently bragged, and we showed you on video, he says now we could even be a global superpower. Okay, so that's the first win for Israel. The second win is we have been telling you guys, and we're about the only ones. Leviathan, but you can look this up. Please look it up for yourselves. Leviathan is a massive gas field in Israel, and they're now bragging that it's going to be the only alternative left after all the energy infrastructure in the Gulf and Iran are destroyed. So that's going to make Israel richer. So they're like, we're getting to sucker Americans and the rest of the world to destroy our enemies and destroy all the energy so that we're even richer and no one can stop us. Meanwhile, gas prices all across the world are skyrocketing. So the whole world is in great pain, but Israel thinks this is perfect. It's a win-win for us.
So further throwing cold water on the notion that Israel ever cared about the freedom and liberation of the Iranian people, we turn to Israel's former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, who urged President Donald Trump to flatten Iran. Civilian lives be damned, of course. And he said this on Israel's Channel 12, quote, "The United States has the ability to do whatever it wants in Iran, to destroy the heavy industry, hit the oil, hit the bridges, hit the production sites, turn Tehran into a flat place. Everything is doable." Who are the terrorists? Who are the terrorists? You still have a lack of clarity on that? I'll keep going. So Danny Danon, the gentleman we heard from earlier, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, was on Fox News this morning to declare that Israel is justified in targeting civilian infrastructure and lied to make it appear as though Iran is the one targeting Israel's civilian infrastructure first, which is not true. Let's watch what he has to say and then I'll break it down.
The president has been talking about the possibility of going after power plants and bridges in Iran if they don't reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Joel Rayburn is a retired US Army colonel who says strikes on power plants could destabilize this regime. I want to get your thoughts.
We tried from the beginning to focus on military targets, but according to international law, if the other side is attacking civilian targets, you are allowed to retaliate. And we are seeing in the last few days that they continue to target civilian targets in Israel, in the Gulf, airports, hotels. So we have legitimacy to target those civilian targets. And I would advise the Iranian to believe President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, because they have showed in the last month that they are capable of striking any target in Iran.
In reality, Israel and the United States strikes civilian infrastructure in Iran, economic infrastructure in Iran, and Iran responds in kind. And so this lie about how Iran started it is laughable when the United States carried out strikes against Iran to start this war on February 28th.
Yeah. As I hear him speaking, I feel like he's going to finish every sentence with "mach schnell."
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So, okay, now we started the war. We killed 49 of their top leaders, including the Grand Ayatollah, in the first day of the war. Imagine if Iran had started the war and killed 49 of the top Israeli leaders. Now, do you think that we would call Iran terrorists if they did that? Obviously, right? Everyone would be screaming from the rooftops, "Terrorists!" But when Israel does it, and now they're dragging America into their war crimes, nope, not terrorists. Absurd. So did you hear what he says there? It's an interesting new standard. He says if someone hits civilian infrastructure and civilian targets, you are allowed to retaliate towards civilian targets. So wait a minute, Israel hit Iranian civilian targets. So is Iran allowed to retaliate by hitting Israeli civilian targets? Because it's not my logic. It's the German/Israeli ambassador there. And I'm sorry, Germans, you're good guys now. You don't deserve that.
No, they side way too much with Israel. Can you guys be on the right side once? Just once. Can you be on the right side once?
Yeah, okay, so anyways. So now when Iran hits civilian infrastructure in retaliation, will we say, oh no, that's fair. The Israeli ambassador said that that's a new standard and it's perfectly fine. Or will Jake Tapper scream from the top of his lungs, "Terrorists, poor Israel, poor Israel, they're the victims," right? Of course they will. Every liar on television will pretend that when Iran does it or any Muslim country does it, it's terrorism. And when Israel does it, oh no, they're allowed to, they're allowed to. Nonsense. Biggest terrorist organization in the world is the idea.
100%. In fact, one other element that I want to share with you all has to do with this fear-mongering about Iran's non-existent nuclear weapons. They never built nukes. They didn't have the capacity to use nukes against their enemies. But you want to know who has nukes? Israel. They're not part of the non-proliferation treaty as any other nuclear power is. And they stole our nuclear secrets to start their clandestine nuclear program and still refuse to officially acknowledge that they have a nuclear program. However, the topic of using nukes against Iran tends to come up quite a bit in Israeli media. And I want to give you one example. So just recently on Israel's Channel 14, anchor Shimon Ricklin asked Ben-Gvir, okay, that's Minister Ben-Gvir, why aren't we using what's called a neutron bomb, a type of atomic bomb that doesn't damage buildings? So there was some back and forth. There was some other panelists on the show, but he turns to Ben-Gvir and says, I recognize your smile, Minister Ben-Gvir. Ben-Gvir then responds with, my position is well known, and I'll put it in the simplest terms. We need to wipe out the Iranian regime.
When asked about nuking Iran.
Yes.
So guys, there is a giant threat to not just the region, but the entire planet. And it is not Iran. It is Israel. So look, how can you tell who's right and who's wrong? Because there's nonsense propaganda from all sides at all times. So how do you know we're right and they're wrong? Well, you can see the facts for yourself. The trick that the other side uses, which is almost all of American mainstream media, is framing, right? But there are core facts that you cannot argue with. Iran never had nukes. Israel does have nukes. Iran put out a fatwa, and if you think that's no big deal, you're totally wrong. A fatwa is the most important religious edict you could possibly have, saying that they would never build nukes, let alone use them. The Grand Ayatollah who we murdered put out that fatwa. And also think about this, if Iran ever built a nuke, which they never had, and used it against Israel, what do you think would happen? All of Iran would be nuked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so do you think that they're going to countenance having their entire population wiped off the map? And all of American media says it like as if they're such animals and savages that if they ever had a nuke, they would immediately launch it because they're so filled with hate against Jews. And they would want, even though they know that it would kill like 70, 80 million Iranians in the response, that they would do it instantly. Think about how racist that assumption is in the first place. And almost everyone in American media says that. And remember, Iran never had a nuke. Okay, but Israel not only has nukes, now they're on television. Ben-Gvir is among the top 3 most important government officials in Israel. He is driving the agenda. Everything he has said, Israel has eventually done.
Yeah.
So he is now saying not only do we have nukes, but we're willing to use them.
Yeah.
They're a super dangerous terrorist state with nuclear weapons.
That's true. Now, the only I guess the only thing that gives me a little bit of hope that Israel is getting checked on their nuclear weapons, because you know the West ain't gonna do it. China came out and said to Israel, if you nuke Iran, we're gonna nuke you.
Oh my God, I hadn't heard that. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, okay. So, hey, and if you're one of these Israeli ass kissers who are like, how dare they?
No.
You don't get to murder 70, 80 million people, pretend it's self-defense, and then complain when it happens to you, okay? So here's a great way to avoid that. Do not ever think about using your goddamn nukes, which by the way, you stole from us. Iran didn't steal the nuclear technology from us. Israel, the betrayers, stole it from us. The betrayers also sent Jonathan Pollard to steal all of our other top secret information. They are not remotely an ally. A terrorist state has captured our government through bribery, through billions of dollars in bribes. They've completely captured our government. Now they're threatening to use those nukes. So sorry, I'm not gonna shed a tear. If they murder 80 million people, what happens to goddamn Israel afterwards?
Right. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll hear a little bit from Ben Shapiro on the topic of targeting civilian infrastructure. And later in the show, we'll also discuss the ceasefire offer that Iran roundly rejected. We'll be right back.
I picked those drapes in my first term. I just saved curtains.
All right, let's go to our members on TYT.com. Mr. In Between says, am I the only one, or do Anna and Cenk look marvelous today?
Really? I'm exhausted. Couldn't sleep last night. I feel like I look tired. You look good though.
Okay, thank you. But you're not the only one. Abdi Knight says, Anna, I love your hair today. Sleek and stylish, very flattering.
Thank you.
Oh, and tell Charlie I said woof.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, lighten the mood a little bit. All right, back to serious stuff. Ux7701 says, Israel and the US have checked off every single box on the terrorism checklist. Funny how these are the two of the developed nations who refuse to recognize the world court. Hypocrisy is a powerful drug. That's right. They're like, now rules for everyone else. International law. Okay, is it gonna apply to you? No, we're above the law. Who says we're above the law and has our piece of crap media go, oh yeah, of course, they're above the law. That makes sense, that makes sense. By the way, we're objective.
It kind of reminds me of when I was on Al Arabia and this woman, this former IDF commander starts like whining about, I think it was 14 Israelis who got killed recently as a result of Iranian strikes. And I'm just like, you guys wanted this war. Why are you guys putting yourself in the position of victim over a
Every
war
time.
you wanted?
A billion times. Guy, they think they got 23 Israelis killed so far, and they're thinking of using nukes.
It's crazy, it's insane.
I mean, imagine if it gets worse. No, they're out of control. Navinik says that guy Danny Dannon sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger doing an impression of an Israeli.
Stop whining.
Hilarious. Mountain Chaos says, I hope someday Netanyahu, Trump, and all the many Nazis get tried for war crimes.
Agreed.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ears, it would be the happiest day of my life. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Matthew Cup, thank you for joining, brother. We appreciate you.
Is the cup half full?
It is now. Says 87728. Thank you for joining as well. And at the premium level, we really appreciate you. Makes a big difference, and you could also upgrade through the join button. Thank you for all your support, guys. If you see us saying something that feels cathartic or is accurate and has given you good information, you did that. All of our members did that, and we appreciate you for it. Also, you could join through our website and get no ads during the breaks. Okay, you get me reading your comments in social media. So tyt.com/join, tyt.com/join. All right, Anna.
All right, let's get into it. So, as Israel and the United States carry out multiple war crimes in their war against Iran by targeting civilian infrastructure, Ben Shapiro, who of course has a true affinity for the nation state of Israel, has decided to chime in and express his views on blowing up what he refers to as dual use infrastructure. Take a look.
Well, on Thursday, the United States blew up the B1 bridge in Iran. The B1 bridge is a very, very large structure in Iran. We blew a hole in it. Again, one of the reasons that you blow up bridges is because military material is moved via bridge. And as we're going to discuss more widely, there's been a lot of talk about quote unquote war crimes meaning the targeting of dual use resources. Okay, dual use means that it can be used for military purposes and also for non-military purposes. So if you target an electrical grid and that electrical grid is used by the military and it's also used by civilians, then is that necessarily a quote unquote war crime? The answer is no, it is not necessarily a war crime. It depends on the proportionality of what you are doing. What is the objective you are seeking to achieve? How effective is the taking down of an electrical grid in actually achieving that military end, and how many people have to be damaged? It turns out that the laws of war have a lot of shades of gray to them. And so anybody who is telling you that it's a war crime to bomb a bridge, well, no, it depends on the bridge and it depends on the military purpose of bombing the bridge, because every bridge is of course an object and the object can be used for many reasons.
Okay, great. So Iran is free to bomb civilian infrastructure. It's dual-use infrastructure in Israel. Maybe take out their energy grid. What? No war crime. I mean, I heard that from the expert on the Geneva Conventions, the representative from the International Criminal Court, Ben Shapiro, of course.
Yeah, when Hamas and Hezbollah were attacking Israel, by the way, they also targeted the military. And in fact, they targeted the military of Israel far more than Israel targeted the military of Hamas. Israel targeted civilians more than Hamas did.
Why would you go after Hamas when you can go after unarmed children?
Yeah, that's an Israeli specialty.
It is.
So, and that's from the Israeli press, by the way. Their civilian kill ratio is much worse than Hamas. But when that was happening, I didn't hear anything about shades of gray. All I heard was terrorists, right? Now all of a sudden, when Israel's doing the terrorism, shades of gray, dual use. And did you notice he said also how many people have to be damaged as you're attacking dual use bridges, schools, hospitals, roads, etc. Well, that's just people being damaged in a normal dual use shade of gray attack, right? So now you've now opened that door. Okay, so when Israel gets hit, I don't want any more crying about terrorism, okay? Because Israel just said it is not terrorism. Those were dual use civilian targets. Sorry, they're not civilian anymore. They're dual use targets. That's not my logic. I think that's disgusting logic. That's Ben Shapiro and Israel's logic, and I hope they enjoy it.
All right, well, let's move on to the likelihood of an end to this war or a ceasefire, which not so likely. Let's get into the details. Iran has now officially rejected a 45-day ceasefire deal proposed by the United States and other regional mediators, Gulf countries who would like to see an end to the war. Other Gulf countries, I should note, would like the war to continue until Iran is destroyed. Now, Iran wants a permanent end to the war instead of a 45-day ceasefire, and I think that's the right take when it comes to US and Israeli aggression. But before I give you the details on what the ceasefire deal contained and more, Cenk, what do you think?
I'm stunned by how little people in politics, media, and Wall Street know. They think that this ceasefire might happen. There is no chance that this ceasefire is gonna happen. Wait till you hear the actual details of what Iran is saying. No, guys, things are about to get way, way worse, and we'll explain why.
Exactly. Now, the temporary ceasefire was basically designed to put a pause on the fighting in order to open the Strait of Hormuz while peace negotiations are taking place. Does that sound familiar? It kind of reminds me of what happened in Gaza with Hamas. Now, Israel has failed to live up to and abide by literally every ceasefire agreement they've signed, including in Lebanon, when a ceasefire was agreed upon with Hezbollah. Israel continued bombing Lebanon. They carried out more than 1,000 strikes during the ceasefire period. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Iranian mediators, however, are very concerned that if they were to agree on a pause in fighting, the United States and Israel would use that temporary ceasefire as a smokescreen to prepare for yet another attack on Iran. Now, remember, right now, both Israel and the United States are kind of in a tough spot because they have depleted missile interceptors. As a result, far more of Iran's missiles are now getting through the Iron Dome in Israel, and they're causing some very real damage. Just recently, a building collapsed as a result of an Iranian strike, and there were some reports about how the society in Israel was concerned that there were bodies trapped under the rubble, which sounds a lot like what Israelis did to Palestinians and continue to do to Palestinians in Gaza. But an anonymous source told Reuters that the effort to put together a ceasefire deal was frantic. Here's what they write. Pakistan's army chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, was in contact all night long with US Vice President JD Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. But Iran shut down the notion of a temporary ceasefire, emphasizing the necessity of a permanent end to the war. The official IRNA news agency, state media in Iran, said on Monday. So the Iranian response consisted of 10 clauses. So they have their own asks, including an end to the conflicts in the region, permanent end, a protocol for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, lifting of sanctions, economic sanctions that have been crushing the Iranians. In addition to reconstruction, they want reparations for the damage caused to Iran as a result of this war. And meanwhile, President Donald Trump is now claiming that the US is basically negotiating with the third Iranian regime. By the way, anything that comes out of Trump's mouth should be taken with a massive grain of salt. But with that in mind, take a look.
We went in for a very simple reason, and not regime change, but we got regime change. This is a whole different regime. This is a different group of people. They're more moderate. They're smarter, much smarter. And, we blew up one regime, we blew up another regime, and now we're dealing with a third, and it is more moderate, it's better. But we didn't do it for that. It seems to be a byproduct. We did it for a simple reason. You know what that is? No nuclear weapon.
You did it for your masters, good job. Now here's what Trump had to say about Iran's desire for a permanent end to the war, a deal that would end the war once and for all.
They've made a proposal, and it's a significant proposal. It's a significant step. It's not good enough, but it's a very significant step. They have made, they're negotiating now, and they've made a very significant step. We'll see what happens.
So we've got some more highlights from Trump's statements earlier today, Cenk. But before we get to them, I just want you to comment on what you heard so far.
So look, it's not a grain of salt. You need to take everything Trump says with a boulder of salt. So what he does is every once in a while he'll bluff and he'll say, I'm going to destroy everything they have. And you have a strict deadline. And he's so dumb because he's done this 100 times and the Iranians already know it. So then he'll send Barack Ravid to put out an article in Axios saying, oh no, we meant that negotiations are going great. It's totally not, none of it is true.
None of it.
Iran is like, what negotiations are you talking about, right? So now, why is a ceasefire near impossible at this point? Because you heard Anna tell you Iran's demands. We're going to lift the sanctions and we're going to give them reparations and we're going to guarantee that we never attack again. And how would we do that? Remove our bases from the Gulf. That's none of this is going to happen, okay? And we have to guarantee that Israel stops attacking Lebanon and all of their neighbors. All of these are impossibilities from Iran, like that's Iran's ass. Now our ass. Our asks are open up the Strait of Hormuz right away. We won't give you a permanent peace. We'll only give you a 45-day ceasefire while we reload. And we want all of your uranium, which is the theoretical point of the war. So both sides are asking for the moon. Totally outrageous asks that aren't even anywhere near close to what would be a deal.
Yeah.
Right? So we're a million miles apart. And part of the reason why people don't understand how deep this war is going to go and how buried we are in this war is because the media keeps reporting what Trump and Israel are saying as if they might be true. That they're not close to true. Look at the actual details. When you look at the details, you realize, oh, no chance we're gonna get to a ceasefire.
So you also have to keep in mind, there are different objectives when it comes to the US and for Iran. For Iran, they see this war as a war for their own survival. And they have calculated that, it makes sense for them to take the hits. And don't make any mistake about it, Iran has taken devastating hits from the United States and Israel. But they're willing to do that and basically run out the clock because they know that the United States has depleted its interceptors. And they also know that, well, there are some reports indicating that Iran's salvo of bombings were, basically the missiles used for those bombings were like the older missiles, and that they're kind of holding back with their more sophisticated arsenal. So that's not a good sign for Israel as more and more of Iran's missiles start to go through the Iron Dome. And the other thing that I'll just note, and I want to go to video C4 here, is that Iran has a lot more leverage than Trump was willing to admit going into this war, when he was a useful idiot for the Israelis and was persuaded that this would be a quick and easy regime change war. Obviously, it hasn't been. And now it seems that in his moments of clarity, Trump has come to terms with the fact that, yeah, Iran actually does hold some cards. Take a look.
Are you willing to make a deal that does not include reopening the Strait of Hormuz, or is that now a top priority?
I would say it's a very big priority because, see, that's one thing that's a little different than other things. We can bomb the hell out of them. We can knock them out for a loop. But to close the strait, all you need is one terrorist that somehow has a truck loaded with, because you can carry them in trucks, large trucks, a water mine, drop them in the water, and now you tell people that own ships that cost $1 billion to don't worry about the mine. You can do that even just by saying we put mines in the water. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their Air Force completely. We've knocked out 158 ships in 3 days. We've knocked out even their mine droppers. They don't have any mine droppers anymore, but they put them on other boats, and they could drop them.
I mean, considering the fact that Trump genuinely seems to believe that the US and Israel have destroyed Iran's military capabilities, it's strange that you keep hearing about missiles getting through and hitting Israel.
He's so inconsistent because he's a child. And so he can't, whatever's on the top of his mind, he says it. He does the bluster and then he accidentally tells you the truth. So he says at one point, as you just saw there, we destroyed all their mine droppers. But earlier he said, well, there's nothing we could do about the trucks they bring in to drop the mine. So which one is it? You just saw it with your own eyes. You can go back and rewind the tape, right? So what he's doing here is accidentally admitting, yeah, they have massive leverage. We cannot stop them from mining the Strait of Hormuz. And all the things that he explained about how Iran could block the strait and is now blocking the strait, we knew before the war. But apparently either Trump didn't know it or his Israel First advisors told him, oh, don't worry about it. It'll be easy, Donald, and you'll be a hero and they'll surrender right away. And as we showed you earlier in the show, he really thought that they were gonna surrender right away.
He absolutely did. In fact, just last week, the New York Times came out with a report indicating that the head of Mossad, David Barnea, had basically been the one who persuaded Trump that this would be an easy war to topple the Iranian regime. Didn't work out that way, did it?
Yeah, of course, as usual, Israel screwed us. And they lied. It's just same exact way in Iraq. Fake weapons of mass destruction, intelligence. Oh God, America, we have such important intelligence for you. It'll get you to attack our #1 enemy at the time, right? So now, look, Iran is using, I've also seen reports, and this one I'm not as sure about, that they use decoys to get rid of our interceptors and Israel's interceptors?
Oh, they definitely did. There was evidence of that. So for instance, one of the things that they did is they used basically a massive balloon that looked like a tank. And the US was like using its missiles to strike these massive inflated fake tanks and things like that. So
guys, look, our military has incredible capability, and the rescue of the 2 guys who got shot down in Iran was amazing and fantastic. But the problem isn't the military, the problem is the leaders, right? So the Iranian leaders thought through these things, and our leaders, Hegseth and Trump, are like 2 of the dumbest people in the country and didn't think through anything and believed everything that Israel told them. Like, this is not new military strategy. The Turks used it in the 1970s to conquer Cyprus. They dropped decoys first, you see where the Greeks are firing from, and then you bomb the places where the firing is coming from. So this is, and in the case of the interceptor missiles, it's obvious logic that you use as many decoys as you can to get us to waste our interceptors. They thought that through, but our leadership didn't think it through, and that's part of the reason why we're in this mess.
The final piece of this puzzle, of course, has to do with Israel and what Israel wants, because of course, Israel's desires reign supreme. It's more important than what the United States wants, obviously more important than what Iran or the globe wants. And so in regard to, Israeli insider Barak Ravid's reporting over at Axios, he claims that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned Trump against a ceasefire deal, an Israeli official told Axios.
Yeah, of course. He doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants to dig in. He wants America to send in ground troops. I mean, he can't use his own ground troops. They're busy invading Lebanon. God forbid he should fight the war that he started, or Israel should ever fight a war they've started. But one last thing, guys, as we dig deeper into the war, exactly as Netanyahu wants, gas prices across the world have risen from 16% in some countries, 16%, to 90% in some countries. So economic global disaster is headed our way as Israel celebrates and thinks, perfect, we're getting mired in this muck, the whole world is, and now they're also gonna need our gas field in Leviathan, and that's why they're happy to bomb those power plants, which is they're another perceived win for them. So the whole world melts down, but Israel is ecstatic about how things are going.
When we come back from the break, we pose a question. What's worse, fake news or Jake news? Come right back. I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care, I don't believe in it, and I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
No part of Gaza has been left unscathed. Ain't a whole lot left. I don't know why they need any more bombs. Let us be clear. The United States provided $18 billion in military aid to Israel. Netanyahu indiscriminate bombardment have killed more than 50,000 civilians, 60% of whom are women, children, paramedics, and journalists. All of this is against basic human decency. You don't starve children with absolutely no humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. It is a war crime. It is illegal for the United States government to provide Israel with more offensive weapons. History will not forgive us.
We've been on our phones too much. I feel like we just need to touch grass or something.
I told you. I mean, you know what? Let's actually do it. Let's touch the grass. Whoa. Andrew Yang? It's not racist, right? It's him.
Yes, it is I, Andrew Yang, out here giving money away as usual.
Wait, but literally?
Do you use a phone? Noble Mobile will cut your wireless bill in half every month, and you get paid even more if you log off, look up, and touch grass.
Oh, I actually have some grass if you...
I don't think that's the kind of grass.
Not that kind of grass, unfortunately.
Whoa, wait, what the...
Whoa. I guess that kind of grass works too. All grass works.
All grass and we get cash?
Wait, did you see that, babe?
Noble Mobile, make it rain, girl, make it rain, make it. That didn't rain so good, but now it's raining good.
Corruption, injustice, the system is rigged against you. Every day we're blasted by a flurry of terrible news from every angle, which can make it challenging to stay positive and know how to fight back. The Damage Report is your solution. I'm Johnny DeRola, and my daily morning show cuts through the noise and exposes the real damage being done to our country, the world, and how we can fight back against it. Corporate greed crushing workers? We'll name names. Politicians selling you out for their corporate overlords? We've got the receipts. Climate disaster, economic collapse, the rise of fascism. No spin, no establishment talking points, just the truth that you need to survive and resist. But it's not all doom and gloom. We'd love to have you join the Dragon Squad, our community of positive-minded activists who turn the day's news into positive action. With new episodes every weekday, listen to The Damage Report to get honest news, unflinching commentary, and daring coverage you won't find anywhere else. Listen to The Damage Report on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, because understanding the damage is the first step to fixing it.
I can't wait to have your person, woman, man, camera, TV in my mouth.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, Brandon Fanuel, thank you for joining, brother. And GarbageBot, thank you for joining at the higher levels. We say like on those higher levels that you're a producer and stuff, because you kind of are. That's what producers do. They finance the show, except we don't have like millionaire and billionaire producers. We have you guys. So we appreciate you. Hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. Okay, Anna.
All right, let's get to our next story. CNN's Jake Tapper had a bit of a tantrum after former counterterrorism director Joe Kent quote tweeted or quote posted something that DropSite News had reported on. Now Jake Tapper gets real sensitive when it comes to DropSite, his competitor that actually does, journalism and gets a lot of praise for the journalism DropSite News does. But before I get to the details, which I'm sure you're gonna love, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so it's something I want you to notice in this story, and you can notice it going forward too, is that when they don't have the facts on their side, people like Jake Tapper immediately go to smears and name calling that are totally free of the facts. So here he's gonna name call DropSite News and Joe Kent, but never does he disprove any of the DropSite stories, which by the way can be, which are about mainly, not about this one, but mainly about how Epstein worked on behalf of Israel.
Yep, sure did.
And Jake Tapper doesn't want anybody to know that, so he's been talking smack against DropSite News the entire time, but completely fact-free.
DropSite News is one of the only publications in the United States of America that tells the truth about Israel's depravity and war crimes. It's that simple.
Yeah.
DropSite is the only source that does a fantastic job in detailing Israel's expansionist policy, their land theft, land annexation, and again, their terrorism. Israel carries out terroristic acts. They're doing so right now in Lebanon. They're doing so right now in Syria, where they're occupying even more land. The media isn't even reporting on that at all. Obviously, they carried out a genocide in Gaza and continue to, just be incredibly brutal against Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. And at the same time, they're occupying 53% of the Gaza Strip as we speak. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about the story that precipitated this tantrum from the likes of Jake Tapper. So here's the context. It has to do with the fact that the United States lost at least 6 military aircraft recently, both on Friday during US-Israeli strikes on Iran and during an operation to retrieve a pilot and weapon systems officer whose F-15 fighter jet got shot down over Iranian territory, okay? So the F-15 that was shot down was deep inside Iran when it came under Iranian fire, and it came crashing down. Luckily, the 2 individuals in the aircraft were not killed. They were ejected from the aircraft. Within an hour of that strike, the US was able to find the pilot and rescue the pilot. However, apparently there was the weapons system officer who was missing for about 2 days. But over the weekend, it was reported that the US military went in and rescued this individual. He was wounded or injured, but luckily survived. Now, Iran had put out a reward for anyone who recovered the American first. But luckily, our military was able to recover him before the Iranians were. Now, Iran, I don't think would have harmed him, but they would have made this individual a prisoner of war and used him as leverage in negotiations with the United States. Now, the Washington Post claims that CIA allegedly launched a deception campaign to mislead the Iranians into thinking they already had the airmen and were basically taking him out of Iran on the ground. But obviously that wasn't the case. Now, the US rescued him before the Iranians could get to him, but military experts, including Marine Infantry combat veteran James Webb, who happens to work as a military consultant now, says he has reason to believe that the pilot was coincidentally saved as the US was in the area in the middle of a separate operation entirely. Here's the argument that he makes.
The footprint itself is indicative of a larger operation that was going on, or perhaps bumped into the fact that we had a downed pilot in the region. And this is what's really opened my eyes, was today seeing that, there are some 76 aircraft involved in this and potentially hundreds of guys. And when you're taking a look at the different contingencies in place or what could have possibly happened, it really opens a lot of doors into, maybe they were going to grab the nuclear dust, or, perhaps the most logical and baseline thing is they were thinking they were going to contact and brought a lot of people with them. Feeding that is the traditional way that these teams go in. It's traditionally an Air Force operation to recover their personnel. We have a lot of people on the deck, apparently, from different branches of the service. DevGru or SEAL Team 6 was there. The 160th looks like they were there with the little birds on the deck, which is an odd thing. They would have flown in on those C-130s and been pulled off the back and put into action. That would be, very atypical. That is a very heavy footprint, would have attracted a lot of attention. It appears to have done so.
Right, and I mean, he makes such a great point there, right? 76 aircraft to rescue one airman who was missing. I mean, obviously that's gonna draw attention by the Iranians and you're gonna become a target. So what was really going on? Were those aircraft in Iran specifically for the rescue mission? And I wanna go to one more video before we go to the whole Joe Kent debacle with Jake Tapper. So here's Colonel Daniel Davis explaining why he also thinks that the US was actually in the area for a separate mission and just happened to run into the missing pilot, the missing airman. Take a look.
And by the way, I'm showing an image on the screen here. On the lower left-hand side there, you see U.S. search aircraft filmed operating in this area. This is where allegedly the F-15 was taken down, that jettisoned these two pilots. And then you can see in the upper right-hand corner, the other red box, a wreckage of the U.S. transport aircraft, which were right by Isfahan, which is one of the reasons why evidence is starting to pile up that this was more than just an operation to extract the pilot. From what I have read, and I was looking at the Air Force manual on these CSAR kind of operations, and the idea is you go in there with the smallest footprint that you need to get the job done. You're not going to go in with a couple of these. These are what the wreckage you saw there. These HC-130J Combat King 2, as my understanding. You're not going to go in with these which can hold, a company plus of men. These two of them. Why would you go in there with that many people if your objective was to just get that pilot back?
Now, of course, none of these details, which are incredibly important, were reported by the corporate media or legacy media in the United States. But I love hearing these details because it gives you a better sense of what's actually going on in Iran with our actions, with our military actions.
Right. So look, as much as anybody is an expert on these military affairs, is like those guys, we're all still guessing, right? So I have no idea if it was just a rescue mission or if it was something else on top. But I could totally believe that it was just a rescue mission because politically it would have been a disaster if we lost that guy. And morally too. So I'm super glad we got him back. I also need you to know the cost of that. I don't mind paying those costs to rescue an American. I do mind bearing those costs because we started this war. We didn't need the war at all, right? So anyway, we lost two planes, a couple of planes and a couple of helicopters, okay? So the entire mission cost us $300 million added to Israel's tab, right? Of course, Israel's never going to pay any of that, but we started this war for them. So we almost lost a couple of guys there. We have already lost 13 service members. A couple of guys got injured in this rescue operation, and we have this giant bill that is now going to be sent to the American taxpayers. So it's maddening. And one last thing, guys. No matter what the mission is for why they sent so many guys into that rescue
76
operation.
aircraft, yep.
Now Iran knows what our tactics are. In fact, I think we made a huge mistake by bragging about all of our tactics all over the press. As I was reading it, I was like, why are you telling us all of these details of how you set up the airport strip, you created a new one?
There was a makeshift strip, yeah.
Right, and all of the extra details, it's to get credit for Trump and the team, right? But meanwhile, what if we have to do a second rescue operation because it looks like Iran could shoot down our planes? So now they're going to be armed with that knowledge. And what if they hit the plane with a couple hundred troops on it?
By the way, according to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, the US now has complete air dominance over Iran.
He said that we completely control their airspace. I mean, what a preposterous lie. So now we've lost how many? Now, when you include the rescue effort, I think we're up to about 6 planes and helicopters that we've lost over Iran.
Yep.
So it doesn't look like complete air dominance to me.
Sure doesn't.
Super worried about the next time.
So all of that context is really important for you to understand in order to understand the next part of the story and what Joe Kent had posted prior to the airmen getting rescued. So he had quote posted a drop site post that said that Iran state-linked Tasnim News, citing a military source, claiming US forces are bombing areas in southwest Iran where a missing pilot may be located, alleging Washington has lost hope of recovery and is attempting to kill him. Now that's what one Iranian state-linked news source had to say. Make of that what you will. But in response, Joe Kent says, praying for the rescue of our downed pilot and the safe return of our special operators going in to get him back. Apparently, Jake Tapper lost his marbles over this because of the fact that Joe Kent quote posted drop site news, which I don't know, Tapper is very salty about. So let's go to what he says. Former National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent sharing Iranian state-linked outlet. Wait, so let's stop there. Drop site news is not linked to Iran. Drop site news was founded by legendary war journalist Jeremy Scahill and Ryan Grimm. What do you mean Iranian linked outlet?
Yeah, look, I'm not as sure about that because, so he has referred to drop site news as Iranian backed before, which is just an outrageous lie and defamation, right? But in this case, maybe he's referring to the fact that drop site news is quoting the Iranian state linked Tasnim News. But even so, guys, think about it, right? He said, drop site said, citing a military source claims the US forces are bombing, right? They didn't say that the US forces are bombing. They didn't say that the Iranians are right. They just quoted Iranian press.
Right.
We quote Israeli press all the time. We quote Iranian press. You know why? Because we're journalists. And our job is to say, oh, here's what that side is saying, here's what this side is saying. And now let's try to suss out what's true and not true. But Jake Tapper doesn't do that. He goes, that's it, you're all guilty. I have some sort of connection to Iran. So I'm gonna smear drop site news, I'm gonna smear Joe Kent. And Joe Kent didn't even reference the Iranian story. He just said, I hope our troops are safe.
Right.
But so it gives you a sense of Jake Tapper was lying in wait for Joe Kent.
100%.
He couldn't wait to try to discredit Joe Kent. Why? Because Joe Kent implicated Israel in us going to war with Iran, and Jake Tapper can't stand that.
Yeah, Joe Kent told the truth to the American people, much like Secretary of State Marco Rubio did at the start of this war, by noting that we got dragged into it by Israel. It's that simple. We all know it. It's not a secret. So stop lying to the American people after the fact. We know that Israel wanted this war. Benjamin Netanyahu at the beginning of the war said, I've been wanting this for decades. I've been dreaming about this for decades. So Israel wants something and they get what they want because they've captured our government. It's that simple. Does Jake Tapper think that he's gonna lie his way into convincing the American people that what the truth is isn't actually the truth?
Yes, he definitely does. To be fair to Jake, that's what they've been doing.
Let's not be fair to Jake.
No, that's what they've been doing for the last 40 to 50 years. They've been telling us that the Muslims are the terrorists and they're the aggressors, and poor Israel, as they took more and more land, was the victims and only acting in self-defense. Golly gee, I don't know how they wound up with all that land, occupied territories, parts of Lebanon, Syria, etc. So Jake was right for all this time, not about the facts or the news. He was right that Israeli propaganda did trick the American people into believing that Israel was the victim all these years. What he can't get through with his thick head is, Jake, the internet exists now. We have access to the actual news and we share it with people and they can confirm it.
Yeah.
They can see what is right and not right. So this really pathetic, desperate attempt to smear Joe Ken is because he quote tweeted someone else referring to what the Iranian press is saying, right? Well, we quote you and you're some form of American media, even when you're lying, and then we give the context for it.
Exactly.
So should we never quote you? Because
let's actually talk about Jake Tapper's conduct, because in response to what Tapper had to say, Joe Kent says that Tapper's purpose, and I agree with him on this, like the entire corporate media, is to promote this foolish war and attack anyone who points out how this war isn't in our nation's interest. And then he tells people to read independent media, Iranian media, and US media, always question those cheering on wars and always pray for our troops. I agree with that wholeheartedly, okay? Now, Tapper responded to that by saying, like, anyone who watches my show knows that I don't promote the war, I simply cover it. Critically. Okay, Jake, okay. But let's, I have in my notes, let's pause for laughter. Good job, Jake. Now, Tapper, when it comes to Tapper's conduct as a journalist, a fair journalist on CNN, let us not forget that he literally had Emily Schrader, who works for Israeli intelligence, on his program to speak on behalf of the Iranian people. If you don't remember, here's your reminder.
How do the Iranians you're talking to, how do they see the future unfolding in Iran?
Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of problems with the internet still being shut off, although there is some limited use with Starlink and limited other options. But by and large, the responses from Iranians that I've spoken to has been overwhelmingly in favor of the United States and Israeli action on the ground.
At no point during that broadcast was it disclosed to viewers that Schrader works for Israeli intelligence in Unit 8200, Cenk.
That's weird. So look, here's another country's media that we often use, Israel's. And they actually have a very healthy press, and we often get real facts from them. And so Plus 972 magazine is amazing. Haaretz often has great stories, but Times of Israel and many of the other publications, including Miriam Adels's publications in Israel, sometimes because they're good journalists, like it's 972 and Haaretz, and sometimes they are inadvertently say like,
no, they report the truth because Israeli society loves these wars. They're supportive of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here in the United States, reporting the truth would turn the American people against Israel, clearly. Who wants to fight wars on behalf of a foreign country? That's ridiculous. In Israel, they love the wars. So yeah, the journalists are gonna report the truth, including what their actual objectives are.
And so they think that it really doesn't go much outside Israel anyway, so it can't really affect. And because why does it not go much outside of Israel? Because they know the American media will not be as critical of Israel as the Israeli media, right? In fact, the American media's whole job is to cover up the news and do propaganda for Israel. And so that's why Jake Tapper gets so touchy when you point out, wait, we had no interest in this war at all. It was Israel that 100 was clearly, super clearly pushed us into this war. The Israeli press says it, right? But the American media goes, no, cover up all the news. Don't let anyone criticize beloved Israel. So like his bias is so gigantic, but to me, one of the greatest tricks that mainstream media ever did was declaring themselves objective. And they just said it, like we are the objective ones and everyone else is biased. If you're going to be massively biased, that is a brilliant piece of propaganda, right?
Yeah, except we're not stupid and we can see through it, so.
But before the online media came, to be fair, they had a monopoly on almost all of the media.
They did.
So they tricked tons of Democrats and Republicans and everyone in the middle to think that Israel was our ally and that Israel was the victim. And so that, and through all that, Anna, as you know, they've taken over $300 billion from America.
Way
and the people like Jake Tapper pretended that that's for our good. Oh, well, Jake, if that's true, why doesn't Israel give us back the $300 billion? And then that'll be great for Israel, right? No, they never do that. No, only give to Israel, only give to Israel. And anybody else that says it, you're an anti-Semite if you ever question Israel. And that's another reason why the Israeli press is better, because you can't call them anti-Semitic, which is their #1 tool to do propaganda in America. Jake Tapper loves that propaganda tool.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, I want to get to the second half of this story because Trump had issued some threats against journalists who had reported about the missing US airmen in Iran. Well, we now know who first reported on that story. Is Trump going to do anything about it? And spoiler alert, not an American journalist. We'll be right back.
They are kissing my ass.
That's kind of nasty.
Members on TYT.com, Huang Jun says, Israel's using American soldiers as human shields. Last time I heard that was supposed to be a bad thing. Guys, there are facts that they cannot deny. All the propaganda in the world is not gonna change the fact that we are using American troops and not Israeli troops, period. Jake Tapper can do 2,000 lies around that. That's why, by the way, the one question I keep pounding away at that no one else is picking up and you've never seen in mainstream media is, why aren't we using Israeli ground troops? And so they want to avoid that like the plague. Isn't that an obvious question? How come not a single person, just coincidentally, not a single person in mainstream media has thought of that question? Absurd, right? Mongoose says, meanwhile, the Democrats are busy yakking about Hassan Piker.
I know, it's insane. It's literally, it's insane.
So Israel's committing a genocide. They've dragged us into this war, and they're like, yes, but what about Hassan Piker?
You want to know why? Because he's influential and he's critical of Israel, and you just can't have that.
Of course, they want to destroy anyone who's critical of Israel. Kristen Welker and all the other propagandists wasting their time with his hatchet jobs.
Kristen Welker weighed in on this?
Meet the Press. Oh, she spent 4 minutes grilling Ro Khanna on Hassan Piker.
Oh my God.
Not the war, not the, like you could have spent so much time talking about so many different things.
Listen, the Democrats, look, this whole campaign was launched by Third Way, which honestly is the core of why Democrats are such losers. Okay, such corporate goon losers. Republican light and can't get elected because they have betrayed their own base.
Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Colin Vitorelli. Oh, what a beautiful name. Sounds like it's from Jersey. All right, guys, I do have a revolution coming up in half an hour for you guys. We have a really interesting guest who's challenging a Democrat because of a dirty trick an incumbent Democrat did. You guys are gonna love that story. And then afterwards in the bonus episode, I'm gonna tell you, I visited a lot of college campuses during spring break. And what did the students tell me in private and in secret? It's kind of devastating. So I'm gonna tell that to the members at the end of the entire show. Good time to sign up now because of that. All right, Anna.
All right, well, let's get to our next story. President Donald Trump is absolutely furious at reports disclosing that the US had lost and was attempting to recover a US airman who had been shot down by Iranian fire. Now, I'm gonna go to the video and then we're gonna get to the details of the journalists who broke the story first. And then we'll ask whether or not Trump is actually gonna make good on his threats. Take a look.
As you probably know, we didn't talk about the first one for an hour. And then somebody leaked something, which we'll hopefully find that leaker. We're looking very hard to find that leaker. And talked about there's somebody missing. They basically said that we have one and there's somebody missing. Well, they didn't know there was somebody missing until this leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out because we're going to go to the media company that released it, and we're going to say, national security, give it up or go to jail. And we know who, and you know who we're talking about, because some things you can't do. Because when they did that, all of a sudden, the entire country of Iran knew that there was a pilot that was somewhere on their land that was fighting for his life. And it also made it much more difficult for the pilots and for the people going in to search for him.
Which is why it shouldn't be surprising that the reporter who first broke this story, thus jeopardizing the US airman who was missing in Iran, was an Israeli, actually. Let's go to Ryan Grimm's post on X where he says, as Amit Siegel just acknowledged on his Telegram channel, he was the first to publish details about the missing second airman. Siegel is an Israeli journalist known for his immediate proximity to Benjamin Netanyahu. So the real question, Cenk, is Trump gonna make good on his promise and go after this journalist for publishing something that put our soldier in jeopardy?
There's no chance of that.
No chance.
But what's interesting is why did that guy leak that story?
Because they're not our allies. They should be considered our enemies. But we live in a topsy-turvy world where Israel gets to abuse us and we just take it.
So we sent in hundreds of guys to rescue that guy. If the Iranians got a load of our actual plans, they could have shot down one of the planes and cost us a tremendous number of troops. And if all those Americans died, what would happen? We would get dragged deeper into this war, which would serve Netanyahu's interests. We reported to you earlier in the show that Netanyahu called Trump and told him he is not in favor of a ceasefire. He wants us to dig in further. So that is a very curious leak. But of course, since it's an Israeli connected to Netanyahu, there will be absolutely no consequences. I mean, the Israelis murder American citizens and there are no consequences, no one arrested, right? You think that there's gonna be consequences for this? No chance. Now on a lighter note for 1 second, with that pink hair, Trump looks like a Oompa Loompa. I just need to note that for the record. You could rewind the tape, maybe we'll show it again.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it.
Yeah. Well, if you can rewind it. I know it's like in the middle of a super serious story, but he looks absolutely absurd. Look at the pink hair. He looks just like an Oompa Loompa.
I gotta say, the effort in dyeing that hair when the rest of you looks the way it does it's almost admirable. Because at that point, I just give up. It's over. I look like this already. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna dye my hair. Like, what difference is that gonna make?
We have a literal clown for a president. He puts on orange makeup and has pink hair.
Okay. Okay, but the plot thickens with this story, Cenk, believe it or not. Because the real question is, okay, but who leaked this information to the Israeli reporter? And it turns out that Miranda Devine over at the New York Post had published a story about that. And then took it down. And she pointed her finger at Israel Katz in Israel. Yeah, but then said, I just deleted a post quoting the Times of Israel, implying that the Iran rescue leak came from the office of the Israeli Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, because that appears to be false. And the Times has now deleted its mention without acknowledging error. And the office of the IMOD strenuously denies being involved. It was Israel Katz.
Yeah, that's Israel Katz going, what are you, crazy? Why did you print that? That implicates us trying to get Americans killed so they'll get stuck in this war. That's obviously true, but retract it. And so now they all have to retract it.
And why would they want, in this context, for an American soldier to get killed by the Iranians? Could it be that would maybe lead to further escalation in a war that Israel wants?
Yeah, 100%, of course. And so guys, here's another reason why you know that we're more likely to be right. Because if someone wrongly quoted the Israeli defense minister and it implicated Israel in potentially betraying us and maybe getting our troops killed, that person would be arrested in Israel. Okay, they would be massive efforts to get that person who falsely quoted the defense minister. But since they likely correctly quoted the defense minister, there is no such effort. Okay, and finally, I wanted to do one quote from Cernovich.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Cernovich is a deep right winger, and so Dropsite News has been breaking all these stories about Israel. And now Jake Tapper and the neocons on cable news are furious at Dropsite News and calling them Iranian propaganda, etc. When they just have Epstein's emails and Larry Ellison's emails and Ehud Barak's emails.
They decided to do a deep dive and analysis into the emails and then simply report on them. The same emails that we all have access to, by the way.
Yeah. And CNN and New York Times and the rest of them are totally ignoring the emails that are public. Everyone acknowledges or is real, and they're like, shh, it implicates Israel. Shh, cover up the news, okay? So Cernovich, the deep right winger, then had this tweet, which I thought was interesting. He said, we are losing our young guys to the left because they all read Dropsite News for Israel news. America, and he puts American in quotes, American conservative media won't cover issues that are all over Israeli press. Zoomers go to left-wing sites instead. So now why do you think that is? Because most of conservative news media is funded by Israel First, okay? They're funded to do propaganda on behalf of all the donors, the fracking guys, the oil guys, the banking guys, but also Israel First, okay? So that is why they do nothing but propaganda that's in favor of Israel. It's also true of mainstream media. So Cernovich is, for the first time, accurately assessing a situation and going, we're losing people to the left because they're the only ones being honest. That's exactly right. And don't get it twisted, guys. The Democrats and their leadership especially are not honest. And MSNBC is not honest, right? No, the populist left, the independent left online is your bastion of honesty, right? So that is why, by the way, of all the people who hate the independent left, the number one people who hate us are the Democratic leadership, because we're a direct threat to them. We take over the Democratic Party, we will win every election, at least in the near future, right? Because we actually aim to serve the American people and not the Israeli people or anyone else. And that is very appealing to independents and now even some of the right wing, right? They will vote for the first person that actually represents America and not Israel. I mean, millions of people will vote in that direction. So Republicans, if you want to nominate another Israel First guy, please, by all means. Democratic leadership in the primary, you want to put up corporate Democrats that are going to be Israel First, please. All we need is one, Ro Khanna or someone else to come in and represent Americans. And Cernovich is right, we're going to rout these guys because there's no one else being honest about Israel.
And I want to be clear, there's an old video of Hillary Clinton going viral right now as we speak where she says, and I quote, I want the Iranians to know that if I'm president, I will attack Iran. So don't think that this is a Republican versus Democrat thing. This is a corporate, bought off, scummy, corrupt politician thing. That's what this is. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the latest from the Epstein class.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to YouTube members. M Brown 7361 says Hassan is now more popular than ever. Thanks, corporate media. Yeah, they are making him more popular by constantly attacking him. And what they're trying to do, guys, if you don't know, is try to remove anyone who's a critic of Israel from the politicians. So that's why they attacked Abdullah al-Said, they attacked Ro Khanna, they attacked anyone who's ever talked to Hassan. By the way, the number of times they've attacked politicians who are talking to Mark Levin, who is an actual bigot and a racist, zero. Never, never. That's how you can tell they're giant liars in corporate media. They're all total propagandists. They're not anywhere near news. Dawn Whitehead says, sick of Israel and our idiotic, war-hungry, greedy government. Dawn, you speak for all of us. Marissa Case says, thank you for coming to Canada to spread this message, which I wish I could be there. I'm in Ontario, going to the Vancouver Web Summit in May. Check that out if you can. Nick Mon 55 says, the dual use thing isn't new for Israel. They were stopping scissors and other medical supplies from being let in for humanitarian aid, any excuse to be terrorists that they are. Yes, they love to pretend that about that dual use. Oh, if it's them, then we get to kill them and deny them aid, etc. But if they even touch a hair on a precious Israeli head, well, then that's it, the world's worst terrorist. Anyway, Mocha Funk says, I hope everyone had a wonderful zombie day. Okay,
isn't that every day?
Lord of the Hamstrings Glory says, every hour, roughly $21 million. Every 60 minutes, this conflict costs the equivalent of providing a full year of Medicaid for over 2,500. All right, back on TYT. I just wanted to finish a super chat I was doing during the break. If you want to catch the comments and the interactions during the breaks, tyt.com/join. That member stream doesn't have the ads during the breaks. It has me reading them. Anyway, Lords of the Hamstrings Glory, who wrote in a super chat, I just wanted to finish their thought. They said that this war is costing us $21 million an hour, okay? Which could provide a full year of Medicaid for over 2,500 Americans or funding hundreds of local infrastructure projects. But remember, those are only Americans. They're not precious Israelis. I mean, our government's spending money on us. Unthinkable when they have to fund all of Israel's wars. Anna.
We've got some updates on the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files, so let's get into it.
The Epstein files has been a saga that's lasted for the past year. And what happened when the president signed the Transparency Act is the Department of Justice has now released all the files with respect to the Epstein saga. To the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward.
The pedophile protection racket continues with the now acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, since Pam Bondi has been ousted, making clear that the Department of Justice is wiping its hands of the Epstein files. They don't plan to release any more documents, and they certainly do not intend on investigating or prosecuting anyone, God forbid. Cenk, your 2 cents before I give you more details.
Yeah, so Pam Bondi didn't get fired for bungling the Epstein files and not releasing them well enough. She got fired because any of them got released. They thought she did a terrible job of burying the files. So Todd Blanche is now coming in to do a better job of that. And you just saw him say on tape, going forward, there will be nothing else released and no one prosecuted. So we're back to full Israel first protection under Todd Blanche. And that's what this is all about, as Anna's about to show you.
In fact, I mean, Blanche is adamant about engaging in this cover up. Take a look.
Now, the Epstein files, you'd agree, not handled well?
No, and I don't, first of all, I have never heard President Trump say that the Attorney General that anything that happened to her had anything to do with the Epstein files. And so look, the Epstein files has been a saga that's lasted for the past year. And what happened when the president signed the Transparency Act is the Department of Justice has now released all the files with respect to the Epstein saga. And the Attorney General Bondi and I appeared in front of Congress voluntarily a couple weeks ago to answer any questions they had. We have made every single congressman, senator available to come and see any document, redacted, unredacted, that they want. And so I think that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward.
These people are sick. Just a reminder that the DOJ has only released about 3.5 million pages of records related to Epstein, which is only half of the roughly 6 million documents they initially claimed to have. So we don't have access to 50% of the documents. And here you have Todd Blanche pretending as though they've released everything they can release. Now, Blanche, who, by the way, was also behind transferring Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security facility where she gets to play with puppies as a serial rapist and child groomer, says he doesn't intend to investigate any of the perpetrators in the Epstein files, doesn't intend to help the survivors. Let's take a listen on what he had to say on that.
Is the public going to learn the identities of the men who abused the girls with the information that you're releasing? And if not, why not? And then I have a quick follow-up.
I mean, you just baked in an assumption into your question that I have never said and I don't know to be true. Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? Like, what does that mean? I mean, I don't understand what that means. Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July. If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them, right? We talked about the work that we're doing. That's why I said that. I said this earlier. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women. If we learn about information and evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will.
They weren't women, they were minors, so girls, minors. In some cases as young as 13, 14 years old, children.
Yeah.
So
Todd Blanche is a disgusting liar.
Sure is.
So over 1,000 girls were abused. So Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were prolific, and they're the only ones who did it. But we already know Prince Andrew did it. We already know all these other guys that were involved. It's super clear, and they've already paid settlements for the sexual abuse they did to the girls. But this effing liar is sitting there telling you that there are no other men. I mean, how disgusting. Guys, do you get it? Our government is covering up for a pedophile ring.
Oh, I get it.
Like, that is unreal, and in the most brazen, outrageous way. This is the same guy that, as Anna told you, went and did the deal with Ghislaine Maxwell. Not only can she play with puppies, that's not an exaggeration, that's actually real. She's allowed to order any food she likes into her minimum security prison. She got transferred to a prison where she could play tennis, she could have fun. It's like a Club Med, okay? In fact, some of those prisons are literally called Club Fed. But she can even DoorDash. Like, it's insane. So this guy has given special privileges to the guilty, covers up all the other scumbags who raped American girls, and he does it obviously on behalf of the sick pedophiles who did all of that.
That's exactly right. Let's talk about more of the sick pedophiles. So the DOJ also had been accused of withholding records related to Trump, including from a woman who spoke to the FBI 4 times after saying the president abused her when she was a minor. That issue prompted the Justice Department to go back and release additional files it said were withheld in error. But reporters said page numbers indicate about 30 pages of that record are still missing. Gee, I wonder why. Now, it's been 2 months since the DOJ released their last tranche of Epstein files, and there haven't been any charges brought against anyone since that happened. And remember, about 50% of the files we don't even have access to, and we don't know what those files say. So there might be more incriminating documents that we just haven't been able to see. And in response to Todd Blanche, one of the most vociferous fighters on this issue, Representative Thomas Massey, wrote the following: "Congratulations, AG Blanche. Now you have 30 days to release the rest of the files before becoming criminally liable for failure to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act." And look, even if you are not at all interested in this story, it doesn't fire you up, you have to give Massey credit for being among a tiny group of lawmakers in Congress who still see their role as members of Congress as relevant. Because right now, Congress seems rather irrelevant, powerless, uninterested in holding the executive branch accountable, for instance. So I love to see this from Thomas Massey. He's not dropping this issue, and there has been some condemnation of Blanche across the political aisle, including from Democratic Representative Robert Garcia and Republican lawmaker Nancy Mace.
Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. This is not some independent person. He worked for Donald Trump, is very loyal. How can you say the investigation is over when there haven't been any convictions, when they were refusing to actually meet with the survivors? And so I'm very concerned about Todd Blanche.
I was not impressed by some of the comments this week that the DOJ would have no further interest in arresting anyone related to trafficking in the Epstein cases. That was very disappointing to hear. Many of the most important documents that I've sought to view at the Department of Justice are still redacted, particularly the names of co-conspirators. Like, why is that information being hidden from the American public? And so I promise to get to the bottom of it.
And I hope she makes good on that promise. We'll wait and see what happens. But Cenk, what do you think the outcome of all of this is going to be?
Yeah, so I'm super curious about that because I don't know how that freight train collision, resolves itself. So let's go over a couple of things here. Look, I appreciate anybody who comes to the right side of an issue. So Robert Garcia, good job of holding people accountable now as the ranking member there in that committee. Good job by Nancy Mace, fair is fair, right, on this. And she was a critical vote to release the Epstein files, and then she got smeared because of that. Instantly there were leaks about, she's so mean to her staff, etc. Classic Israeli hatchet job against anyone. Wait, why is Israel involved? Because all the emails of Epstein are about how he can help Israel. That's why you're not seeing anything, because our media and our politicians are in the Israeli protection racket. So that if he had done this on behalf of Cuba or China or Russia, all we would be talking about is Russia, you raped our girls, the Chinese did this, we gotta go to war. The Israelis do it, shh. So, but really, back to Massey, there's two guys who are American heroes on this, and there's no question about it. No matter what else happens, they should build statues of them on this alone. Tom Massey and Ro Khanna. And I'm like, I get that Massey was the only guy for a long time on the Republican side, because right now it's Republicans in charge, and it's harder to out your own party, right? I don't know why the entire Democratic Party wasn't with Ro Khanna from day one. They joined much later, when there was massive inevitability to what they had done. When he first got started, as usual with anything Ro Khanna does, which is usually on behalf of the American people, all the other Democrats were like, tisk. I can't believe he's working with Tom Massey. That's so crazy. So it drives me crazy that how corrupt 98% of our Congress is. So now back to Bondi for a second. So the number one mistake she made was saying that the Epstein files are on my desk. So because then everybody's like, well, then the files exist.
Right.
That's the giant part of the reason she got fired, because she bungled the cover up. Right? There is a second reason to be fair, which is that Trump was really mad at her that she couldn't prosecute his political enemies. But that's because there were garbage cases.
Yeah, the courts just dropped it. Like they're like, no, this isn't.
And the president is like, I want you to prosecute my political enemies on tape. So like, you can't win that case. That's why he got laughed out of every court. And then as usual with Trump, he blames Bondi, when it was actually his fault. I got no love for Bondi, okay, and I'm glad she's fired, but it's not like it's solved anything. We got someone who is actually more seasoned in cover-ups, like Todd Blanche. So at this point, last thing overall is, at this point, you have this hilarious cover-up in the media, right? Where we know that there were tapes because we have the emails where Epstein says, remember, we're putting the video cameras in the clocks and in the tissue boxes.
I love it so much.
Yeah, and our press is like, what videotapes? What blackmail? Oh, and if there are videotapes, first of all, we're not gonna ask any questions about it. We're not gonna press it. I mean, why aren't they all screaming, where are the videotapes? Where are the videotapes?
Because their friends are pedophiles and they wanna cover up for them, that's why. Let's just call a spade a spade. Let's just be honest and blunt.
Yeah, look, they're not just doing it because they're pro-pedophile. They're doing it because Israel did it, right? And so that's why they're so desperate to cover it up. You're telling me they put tapes in the tissue boxes, the video cameras in the tissue boxes, and they didn't tape it? Come on. And the government doesn't have that despite the fact that they entered all of his properties and all of his safes? No, obvious. And they have the tapes, but he didn't use it for blackmail? No, you would have to be the dumbest person in America or a mainstream media journalist to believe that.
Agreed. Well, that does it for the main show today. What's coming up on the Revolution, Cenk?
So tonight we're going to talk to someone who's Democrat but is forced to run as an independent because the Democratic incumbent leaving the seat did one of the dirtiest tricks there is.
Ooh,
so I'm going to counsel you. I mean, let's hear the guy out. But based on what I've seen already, do not vote for the Democrat, vote for the independent. And if you're one of those Democratic pom-pom people who are like, nah, you vote for the Democrat no matter how corrupt they are. No, I'm not interested in you. Okay, those kind of people are the people who destroy the Democratic Party. Oh, let's protect the corrupt. No, let's not protect the corrupt. Let's drive them out of the party.
Let me just read a real quick tweet before we end. This is from Mike Cernovich. Hassan is not my cup of tea, but allowing people who lied about WMDs when they had official power to remain in good standing versus a streamer or influencer is a silly double standard.
100%. Among those liars are Jake Tapper and almost everybody on cable news who lied and lied. Iraq war, Iran war, every war, lie. And you think Hassan's the problem? You guys are 10,000 times the bigots, the liars of any of the folks that are online. All right, we do have the Revolution coming up, and afterwards in the bonus episode for the members, my experience on college campuses and what the students whispered to me as they feared what might happen to them. All that's coming up. We'll be right back. All right, welcome to the Revolution. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. So guys, on this show, we're trying to foment some sort of rebellion, revolution that is political in nature, and so that there doesn't have to be a physical one. Our government is captured by foreign interests, by corporate interests. Our system is built on bribery and corruption. And so we often interview Democrats who are challenging that system. Tonight, we're going to talk to an independent who's challenging that system. Well, he's a Democrat and now was forced into being an independent. But I'm also open to talking to any Republicans that are challenging the system, challenging incumbents, and not beholden to corporate donors or foreign country donors. So there are two steps to this that are absolutely critical. Number one, we have to make sure that we vote against most incumbents, almost all the incumbents. 94% of Congress takes money from the Israeli lobby. They serve the Israeli lobby. So unless you're absolutely positive that your incumbent does not take money from AIPAC or any of the Israeli lobby, or by the way, corporate PACs, you should vote against them. Experience in Congress is a massive mark against a politician. The reason mainstream media tells you experience is so important is because they love the corruption of the incumbents and they want to support that corruption. So experience in national Congress is actually a terrible thing to have, because that means that the giant donors gave money to those folks and they gave them votes back, and they now got return on investment. So then they re-upped and purchased them again and again and again. And the second thing is 2028, man. We need someone who is a populist left figure who is honest and is going to serve the American people. If we don't have someone honest win, this corruption is going to be the end of us. And I can't bear that thought. We have to get America back. We have to get our democracy back and our government back. So today, let's talk to someone about how they're trying to do that. So joining us now is Byron Sigcho-Lopez. He's an alderman in Chicago and now running for Congress. Byron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Cenk, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. So Byron, first of all, did I get that right? Are you a Democratic alderman in Chicago?
That is right. I'm a Democratic committeeman, a representative in my ward. I'm also a Democratic Socialist. Okay, so obvious question for you: why not run as a Democrat for this congressional seat? Which I'm sure, of course, will open up to the whole drama that has ensued in that seat. So tell us about it. Yeah, thank you. Well, because I was not even given my choice, as well as many other leaders within the 4th Congressional District. We wish Congressman Garcia the best in his retirement for personal reasons. But the reality is that when the decision was made to retire, the congressman used a machine tactic to deny the 4th Congressional District, the voters of our district that were heavily attacked by ICE agents just blocks away. They murdered Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. They shot Marimar Martinez 5 times. Another neighbor in Brighton Park in the southwest side of the city, fortunate to be alive. And when we were fencing for ourselves and we were left out completely without any help, and our community came together as this was the decision to retire happened, the congressman basically did not allow or did not tell anyone that he was planning to retire at the very last possible minute. Literally, he withdrew his petitions, and his chief of staff entered her petitions that during those same last weeks, during that time, Chicago Midway Bliss was in full-blown terrorizing our community, and they were behind closed doors plotting a succession and anointment plan that left only one person on the ballot, the congressman chief of staff. That is not only undemocratic, it's unethical. In other states like California, that is illegal. And today in the ballot, there's only one person. That's what I decided to challenge this. Because if we learn anything from the presidential election that deliver a fascist for the White House, not having primaries, not having open conversations, not having debates is a disservice to our constituents and to the whole country. And that's what I decided to enter this race so that we can challenge the establishment, so that we can challenge AIPAC and those corporate billionaire pedophile class with ideas, with proposals. I served the city council for 7 years. We've been fighting this billionaire pedophile class that have been trying to buy our elections locally too. And we have shown that the power of the people is a lot bigger than the people in power.
So I'm going to get to your stance in a second, but this is a dirty trick that I've now seen many times in 25, 30 years of covering politics. And unfortunately, a lot of times Democrats do it. So they do the old, 3-card Monte trick. Oh, what's behind, which cup is it under? Oh, yeah, too late. You can't challenge anyone else. I anoint the next thing. I mean, it's so ironic when we're doing no kings protests that a Democratic incumbent would say, I don't care about the voters. I'm not gonna give them an opportunity. I'm just gonna pick who the next congressperson is going to be. I heard a lot about how great Chuy Garcia was in the past. I never saw it. And then he does this dirty trick on his way out. But here's what I'm curious about. Patty Garcia, so the person he anointed, does she take corporate PAC money or Israeli lobby money?
We don't know yet. I mean, we haven't seen her in public. We haven't seen what she stands on. We haven't seen that she's denouncing, she's rejecting, and she's fighting against AIPAC and the corporate billionaire class. Is someone who we haven't seen at all. She did not. I didn't hear much of it during the primary. She was basically given the primary nomination, and there has not been very little debate on how actually so far. We are concerned about people who are in the Democratic establishment. Michael Sachs, Governor Pritzker, who also has been in the habit of buying seats and entering races, especially in the 4th Congressional District, a district that was heavily attacked, that has been heavily impacted by this big betrayal bill and the effects in our community. It'll be a disservice if we allow a seat to be bought by corporate interests, including those who, and the governor just most recently was being apologetic about another billionaire who was in support of AIPAC and explaining why that was okay. Still, we yet to hear the governor to speak and denounce the genocide and to commit not to fund the genocide and the state of Israel. In our state, we continue to see bonds being bought for to fund the genocide.
So since we don't know any of Patty Garcia's positions, but hey, she's been anointed. Anyways, I got to ask about Chuy Garcia's positions because he's likely to appoint someone that's similar to him theoretically. I mean, whatever his theoretical positions are. So, and I genuinely don't know this. Did he take corporate PAC money or Israeli lobby money?
Well, I know that he did not take Israel money. What I tell you is that they're being questioning, especially in the last few years, in terms of funding for crypto. He was in the finance chair and then he stepped down. What I tell you is that one thing I do know is that we have not take AIPAC money. We have not take corporate money. We have been saying for years abolishing ICE and not only saying it, but actively organizing on the ground to organize our community to dismantle this agency that is terrorizing Americans, not only immigrant neighbors. We've been the scapegoating for way too long. We haven't seen is a fighter on the ground that is fighting not to make anointments, but to build coalitions of working people. We've been building coalitions with the Muslim community. For instance, we are still sadly the only major city that has voted on a ceasefire in Chicago. We've been leading those efforts. We're being unapologetic and we've been organizing with our neighbors on the ground, with all working people to challenge the only minority destroying our country, the billionaire class. We also have been clear that for us to build a coalition, we cannot have a big tent when we as immigrants or Palestinians or Muslims or trans communities are always marginalized. So we have been building coalition to truly fight an establishment that is disconnected from the reality of working people.
So Ro Khanna and Tim Kaine were on Meet the Press this weekend, and they had different views on potentially funding the war. So Khanna said absolutely not. Tim Kaine said, well, our troops are in harm's way, so we'll have to look at it. So where do you come out on that?
I mean, look, if you look at, we just heard the unhinged president to talk about that we cannot fund pre-K, that we cannot fund kindergarten, that we cannot really do anything for working families looking for pre-K. I'm a father of triplets. My kids are about to turn 4 years old. With the money that we have sent to bomb innocent little girls in Iran, for the war that we already have started because of Trump's pedophile plus obsession on destroying the Middle East, we could have funded, and this is a very clear symbol of the disconnection from reality. With the money that he's been already using to bomb innocent little girls in Iran, we could have funded childcare, pre-K childcare for every 4-year-old across the country. So when we see when we hear from these fascists about America first, we got to look what they're doing. Imagine the $42 billion that they gave to the sociopath Nazi president in Argentina. $42 billion that will have gone a long way to provide housing, to provide healthcare, to provide childcare for many Americans across the country. And I think that's what Americans are worried about. The narrative, the propaganda of American first has always been to put the interests of a handful of billionaires ahead of the interests of people at home and abroad.
But Byron, let's say you're in Congress and Hakeem Jeffries says, listen, we're against the war. We're going to try different ways of stopping it, but the troops are in harm's way. So that's it. You got to vote for funding. What do you say?
Well, we said that our troops are in harm's way because the irresponsible funding of illegitimate criminal wars. We are not going to, for our constituents are saying it. We do not want any wars. We do not want a genocide in Gaza. We don't want another genocide in Iran or Congo or Sudan. No more wars. We want to truly focus on what the Republicans have promised, but yet never deliver, is to focus on our issues at home, to make sure that our American neighbors or communities in American cities across the country are suffering, so that we want to make sure that we fund the SNAP benefits, that we fund healthcare, education, that we fund an economy that works for everybody. Nobody signed on to put American lives at risk, and worse, to have all the inflation that they claim that they were in a battle. Look at the oil prices. These illegitimate criminal wars that they're creating are they're destabilizing not people only in the Middle East, they're destabilizing our own country and our American cities. So we will challenge the leadership of the establishment and the Democratic Party, and we're not going to lend or vote for more wars to destabilize people in entire continents, in the Middle East, Latin America, Africa, or in American cities. This is the time to stand up for what Americans want us to do, is actually to put the issues of our American cities, of American people across the country before the agenda of the billionaire pedophile Nazis that are governing our country today.
So Byron, tell us about the dynamic of the race, right? So you've got a Democrat, you've got you as an independent, and I assume you're gonna have a Republican in the race. So between the three of you, obviously some people are gonna be worried about splitting the vote. Now, that drives me crazy, not in the splitting of the vote, but that talking point does. Because it's almost always followed up by a mainstream media anchor saying, hence, you should drop out and let the corrupt Democrat win. Because they assume that whoever the party anoints is the correct candidate. Despite overwhelming evidence of Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris not being the correct candidates, they still say that. So how is this going to play out, you think, and how do you answer that question?
Well, I think, and I agree with you. I think that this notion that we have to allow the corrupt neoliberal Democrats to get into office just because we have to continue to go along to get along. I think in this race, in this five-way race, it is clear that our community wants a fighter, someone who is fighting not only for democracy at home, but democracy abroad, that we are connecting the struggles that people are seeing for the first time, AIPAC and these billionaire pedophiles as a big problem, that we see the drones that are flying in Gaza now flying today in the 4th Congressional District, that we see the effects of masked individuals in Gaza or in Iran or in all neighbors. So I think the people in our district want someone who is going to fight for them, who is going to build coalition, not with the Democratic establishment, not with the Republican fascists, is going to build coalition with people across the country. Anyone willing to join this coalition of working people to fight the billionaire class is welcome. And I tell you that feel the energy in across the suburban and urban areas. I feel the energy of people who want a leader who is going to fight and work to build that coalition and bring people to Congress. In this race, I think there's 3 independents. There's the Democratic anointment, and is the Republican nominee with very little visibility. This is a fight where the groundwork, when people on the ground, with our message, with our fight and our track record, more than anything else. I'm the only elected official who has been fighting for at least the last 7 years, fighting the billionaire class, fighting AIPAC, and show that we can win. I know that a ground game, and I think I tell you right now, our petitions, when they ask us to get over 11,000 petitions, when you're a Democrat or Republican, you only need 500 petitions. As an independent, we got to do 30 times that number. We will, because fighting on the field is shown in previous elections that we have had is the most important thing. Having door to door, attending and organizing people and organizing small donors. I feel very optimistic about Americans now seeing domestic and foreign policy for what they are. And what we want is to fight for the kind of world, the kind of society where we don't dehumanize and we don't negotiate anyone's humanity. We are ready to take on this and take this fight all the way to Washington. We fought in Chicago to fight this fascist regime, ICE agents and mercenaries trying to attack us. And now we want to take all this fight to Washington to show that American community or American neighbors all are united against the billionaire pedophile Nazi class.
So, Byron, tell us, you say you've been fighting them since you've been an alderman. Tell us what that means. How did you fight them?
Look, I think that it is very important to see people what they've done before they come into office. In our area, they have they have attacked communities like Chinatown. Trump, in his first term as office, he was calling the China virus. He was using bigotry and racism to dismantle entire communities, to create conflict and wars. And on the ground, the conflict and the hate crimes, especially against our Asian neighbors, was livid and was taking a toll. Many Chinatowns across the country have been decimated because of that. Here in our community, we've seen a Chinatown that is growing because of this coalition between neighbors. To show, we were so sad to see business owners, people in our community crying because people wouldn't come, people were afraid. We have battled fear with plans, with actions. Today, because of that coalition and that same support that now is part also of the 4th Congressional District, has now propelled a coalition that not only has made this Chinatown one of the only Chinatown in the country that is growing because of the support. A lot of those customers that came in were Latino customers who've seen and reflect on the immigrant story, who reflect each other as neighbors. We also have 5 big development. In my ward, we have the largest development in the city, a $10 billion development. We fought to make sure that we do not allow the big billionaire class to impose plans that never deliver. That we hear directly from the people. Today in our community, we continue to fight to have a welcoming community, to continue to be, we are a port of entry. I am so proud and I'm so proud to represent an immigrant working class community in the 25th Ward, but also in the 4th Congressional District. And elections matter. Within the 4th Congressional District, because of this type of establishment politics, we have the lowest voting turnout in the whole Illinois congressional delegation. But the 25th Ward in all the 4th Congressional District has the largest voting turnout. Elections matter, organizations matter. And as a result, in our community, we're building a large coalition that fought back to have the first ceasefire because our Palestinian brothers, sisters, and siblings are our neighbors. And we do not negotiate anyone's humanity. We do not despair, we organize. And in Washington, that's what we want to bring. A fight to ignite the souls and minds of many Americans. We're 350 million of us, and a very small number of pedophiles and a small number of Nazis trying to pitch us against each other. That is the oldest book, the oldest tactic critique in the book, divide and conquer. And today we have an opportunity. The emperor has no clothes. We see what's going on in the world. We see what's happening in Cuba, what's happening in Iran, in Gaza. This is our opportunity to organize and fight back. And Congress represents that opportunity to have a platform for a national fight so that we can put people over profit.
So there was a tough issue in Chicago. Some immigrants had come in and they were bused from Texas to Chicago, and a lot of the local residents were aggrieved, and they came to a lot of the public meetings and said, "Wait, how come they're getting money and we're not?" And so it was a real concern for the citizens in Chicago. So how do you navigate a tough issue like that?
Look, I think, and that's what I'm so grateful for many leaders in Chicago who understand that the unity among working people is fundamental to fight back. As you know, the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, a convention that was run by the likes of Rahm Emanuel and Michael Sachs and Rahm Emanuel, people again who will continue to oppose the true big tent and continue to put the interest of foreign nations before our own. These are the people who are running the DNC and failed completely to acknowledge, this was complete sabotage against our city, and that they have very little sympathy with working people in our neighborhoods is nothing new. Remember, this is the same group of people who close schools in black communities, pitches our communities against each other, the Laquan McDonald and the cover up and so forth. So we understood that in our neighborhoods, we need to make sure that we understand what's going on, that a fascist governor like Abbott was sending people inhumanely. 2 children died in transit from Texas to Chicago, all to sabotage the Democratic Convention. And what we did is organize our community. Today, I tell you that they try to pitch the Venezuelan community against the Mexican community or the black against the Latino community and so far. So we understood that we needed to do this work on the ground, inform residents about what's going on. In fact, City Council tried to censure me because I spoke about the dangers of having a DNC without a plan, without understanding that they will come with sabotage. And because of that organizing, we expose that this, the genocide in Gaza, the interest to sabotage your city and to push black and brown residents to the city, out of the city, it is part of the same struggle. So today, I think that we have built a lot of unity. You saw that in the response of Chicago against Trump, when they came in and they brought Dr. Phil to try to film the division, the chaos that they were expecting. They were frustrated, and after months, they were saying, well, Chicago is well organized and well informed. They know their rights. So then this is what after they had to come with their mercenaries to break the law, to violate the Constitution and to terrorize our community, violating the Constitution and the law. So organizing and people on the ground, foots on the ground, informing, political education in our community and building that coalition. That's what will never betray the black community. There's a history in our city. We got Chairman Fred Hampton. We see many Mamie Teal. There's a long legacy, Reverend Jesse Jackson, a long legacy of civil rights movement in our city. And we as immigrants, as people in our city, understand, appreciate, value, and we add ourselves to this coalition.
So I understand all that. And so Texas puts you in a difficult situation for sure. All the injustices that you talked about surrounding that are true. Now, having said that, still, what do you say to the citizens of Chicago who are still mad about it and say, look, how come we don't get anything? So that's a tough thing to answer. And I'm not sure I know what the right answer is, but how do you talk to those citizens? What do you tell them?
Look, I think that's what understanding that we are in a global fight. What happens abroad, I mean, that's what we talk about. In this real, the issues in Chicago are real. The systemic racism, the neglect, the disinvestment that we see in our cities. 300,000 black residents left the city. But they left because of these neoliberal policies. That's what we say, that neoliberal corruption paves the way for fascist corruption and genocide. So that's what is so important, that we talk to people about what will we do with these billions of dollars that are going
to war? What do we do? What do we do with like the billions of dollars that are going to Iran? That's what I mentioned very specifically. These billions of dollars, $50 billion that are going for bombing innocent little girls in Iran that could use to fund pre-K in our American cities. That's what we said. The lack of investment in housing. It is not because of the immigrant neighbors who've been displaced from Venezuela or Mexico or Africa or Haiti for that matter. This is because the billionaire, a handful of billionaire and oligarchy that owns our country that have decided that they will rather pay masked individuals that funding medical for all. They will pay rather for people to disappear and concentration camps rather than green social housing, for instance. In our city, green social housing is a reality. We put as a city with all our challenges, we put $125 million to create green social housing, to tackle the issues of the environment and also to create housing options for our neighbors. And we continue to fight to tax the billionaires and millionaires in despite of all the challenges, so that we see that we have a lot more in common between our neighbors than the billionaire class that right now are even hiding the Epstein files. So connecting these dots, connecting these struggles and showing that yes, it is possible that we can have housing as a human right. We are the richest country in the world, and we should not allow now people in Tennessee, huge lines of people just trying to get some kind of medical care. We should not normalize that in our country.
Yeah, Byron, last thing. So Chicago also historically has had a significant crime problem, right? So what is your progressive or otherwise solution to that crime problem?
Look, and we've seen the results and we've seen the good results in investing in young people. We had the largest program of youth employment in the country. Over 33,000 young people that are being employed. We have also made sure that we provide shelter, for people, that we have invested in stability. We have today in our ward, right, an intake facility so that we can help people with housing stability. A lot of the issues of violence are issues of disinvestment. So we show that we can address the issues of violence by investing in people, investing in our young people, creating a stability. There's a lot of studies that show the connections between evictions and housing insecurity. We have 20,000 young kids in CPS unhoused or in stable housing. We show them by providing housing. I'm the chair of the Housing and Real Estate Committee. And we just last week invested another $300 million to provide over 1,000 units of truly affordable housing in our city. But there's a lot more to be done when we invest in young people, when we invest in the root causes of violence. We actually have reopened mental health clinics that not until long ago we have been doing town halls with people so that we can learn of what people need in our community, investing in youth employment programs, in housing, in employment, so that we can get people back on their feet. And we see a reduction of 30% in the chronic homicide violent incidents in our city. But imagine if we start divesting from genocide states and investing more in these solutions, mental health, education, housing. We know that we can really tackle those issues, but we cannot do it alone and not do it in a bubble. So that's what we need to keep taxing the billionaire. We need to tax the billionaire class so that we can fund programs like in our city. For instance, we have a very creative program, Love City, when our young people are learning how to become not only actors, actresses, but producers, right? So there are a lot of creative programs that are giving great results, but we will not be able to do more of that when our government is taking more and more money to wars and violence and armed dealers. So our city is doing some good work, but there's gotta be a lot more to do. State, federal, and local municipalities, there's a lot we can do to save people's lives and to prevent the mass shootings that we see every week in our country. There's a lot more that we can do to get to the root causes of violence.
All right, Alderman, what's your website?
BSL, B as in boy, SL for Congress.com.
All right, we'll put that link down below in the description box as well if you're watching this later. Byron Sigcho-Lopez, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, Jen. Great to be here.
And appreciate the passion he's got. All right, guys. So bonus episode now coming up for our members. What did I hear from students at some of the top colleges in the country? What did they have to whisper to me when they saw me? I'll tell the members that. If you want to join, hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. I'll see you there in a minute.